Chapter 423. Although Lu Chen's Xiangjiang Film and Television Studio had only been established for a short time, everything here seemed to be orderly and regular. None of the recruited employees was idle. They were all busy preparing for the first movie that the studio was going to shoot. Although it was small, it was complete. The most important thing was that the atmosphere in the studio was very good, giving people a sense of vitality, which made Lu Chen very satisfied. Wan Shaoquan was not greedy for credit. He gave the credit to Chen Wenxiang, the director of the studio. Lu Chen's Xiangjiang studio still had very few employees. Of course, Lu Chen himself was the big boss, and Wan Shaoquan served as the artistic director. When it came to specific work affairs, it all depended on this thin middle-aged man. Chen Wenxiang was not good-looking. He had high cheekbones, a tight and narrow chin, and a pointed mouth and monkey cheeks. His skin was dark and thin, and he was no more than 1.6 meters tall. He looked a little funny in a wrinkled suit. However, his eyes were full of spirit. His eyes were bright, and he gave people a feeling that he was tough and difficult to deal with. On the way to the studio, Wan Shaoquan deliberately told Lu Chen about the new director. Chen Wenxiang was a descendant of the first generation of immigrants in Xiangjiang. He grew up in a small fishing village in the New Territories. After graduating from high school, he came out to join the society. He washed dishes and swept the streets. Later, he accidentally entered the film and television circle. He started as a handyman, ran errands for others, was an assistant, an agent, and even worked as a director of a TV station. His work experience could be said to be very rich. He was a role similar to that of a jack of all trades, but he had never really stood out. His career was bumpy, and his life was not smooth. Chen Wenxiang's wife died very early, leaving him and his only daughter to rely on each other and work hard to make a living. Wan Shaoquan poached Chen Wenxiang through the introduction of a friend. For an outsider like Lu Chen's studio, which had no connections and foundation in Xiangjiang, it would undoubtedly avoid a lot of unnecessary troubles and take fewer detours, and it would be easier for them to integrate into the local circle. Of course, the price of poaching people was not low. In addition to the necessary high salary, Wan Shaoquan also promised to give Chen Wenxiang's daughter a role in the first movie produced by the studio. Chen Wenxiang's daughter, Chen Si, was currently studying in an acting training class and wanted to enter the entertainment circle. This daughter was Chen Wenxiang's lifeblood. Uncle Chang, thank you for your hard work. After Wan Xiaoquan's introduction, Lu Chen took the initiative to extend his hand to Chen Wenxiang. I'm new here, so I'm not familiar with everything here. Please give me some pointers. Lu Chen would never care about his boss's face and style to pretend to know something he didn't know. His frank and enthusiastic attitude clearly surprised Chen Wenxiang. He quickly bowed and shook Lu Chen's hand, saying, "Boss, you're too kind. It's my honor to serve you." Compared to Li Zhen, Chen Wenxiang's standard of Mandarin was really far behind. Not only was it stiff, but it also had a strong Cantonese accent. If one did not listen carefully, one would not be able to understand it. Lu Chen smiled and said, "Uncle Chang is too polite. I wish us a happy cooperation." These two sentences were said in Cantonese, and it was very standard Cantonese. Chen Wenxiang was suddenly stunned. Even Wan Shaoquan and Li Zhen, who were next to him, were very surprised. Wan Shaoquan had known Lu Chen for a period of time. Chen Wenxiang and Li Zhen had seen his relevant information and knew that he was from Zhejiang province. He had just graduated from university last year and majored in computer science. After graduation, Lu Chen had been developing in the capital and had never been to Xiangjiang. Today was the first time. Then why was he so fluent in Cantonese? Of course, Lu Chen knew what everyone was thinking, but he couldn't say that his ability to speak Cantonese came from Su Wenbo's memory, could he? He explained, "I learned Cantonese from a classmate from Chaos Han." It's not bad, right? Chen Wenxiang gave a thumbs up and sincerely praised, "Boss, this is your Cantonese." There's nothing to say. He didn't care how Lu Qin learned Cantonese. What was important was that there would be no obstacles in communicating with Lu Qin in the future. He was worried about this problem at first, fearing that it would affect the communication between the two parties. Chen Wenxiang knew much more about Lu Qin than Li Zhen. Through the information obtained from various aspects, Lu Qin had already made a big name for himself in the domestic entertainment circle. His future was limitless. What he currently lacked was qualifications. Lu Qin chose to come to Xiangjiang to establish his new career. Chen Wenxiang felt that this was an opportunity for him. As long as he grasped this relationship, even if the film here failed in the future, it would be easy to bring his daughter to develop in China. Compared to the entertainment circle in Xiangjiang, the domestic world was really vast. Therefore, when Chen Wenxiang jumped to Lu Qin's studio, he sincerely wanted to make some achievements. "I've seen many celebrities from the mainland. Your Cantonese is the best. It's not a problem for you to be a real Xiangjiang person." Lu Qin smiled faintly. Chen Wenxiang's attitude towards him was certainly sincere and respectful, but his words inadvertently revealed the superiority of the Xiangjiang people over the mainlanders. Chen Wenxiang was like this. What about the big stars and high-level figures in Xiangjiang's entertainment circle? Although it was a good opportunity, it wasn't easy for him to expand his business here. Lu Qin had already been mentally prepared for this. He couldn't have all the good things in the world. If Xiangjiang was a new battlefield, he would not be afraid of any challenges. A life full of challenges was an interesting and meaningful life. Wan Shaoquan timely said, "Let's go to the small conference room to talk about the new film." The most anxious person about the film was not Lu Qin. It was the director, who had not sat in the director's chair for several years. He had gotten Lu Chen's script when he was in the capital and had basically studied it thoroughly. From the perspective of filming, it's not difficult. In the small conference room of the studio, Wan Shaoquan spoke confidently in front of the projection screen. What was shown on the screen was the draft of the new film that he had drawn himself. Every stroke was undoubtedly permeated with the director's painstaking efforts. All the scenes can be shot in the Lion Rock Film and Television City. In addition, as for the special effects, several local special effects companies in Xiangjiang are fully capable of producing them, including the soundtrack, dubbing, and so on. There is no need to go back to the mainland to find people. The main problem is still the crew, or partners. Chapter 424. Xiangjiang was originally an important colony of the United Kingdom. After the handover in 1967, it became one of the 3 special administrative regions of China, retaining the original political system and social structure, which would not change within 100 years. Next year would be the 50th anniversary of Xiangjiang's return to the motherland. In the past 50 years, Xiangjiang's economy had been prosperous and developed. With finance and trade as the pillar industry, Xiangjiang's per capita GDP had always been in the forefront of the world, and many world-class rich people had emerged. However, the different political culture also created the social atmosphere of Xiangjiang that was different from that of the mainland. In recent years, this international metropolis had shown a kind of aloof and independent attitude, instinctively rejecting the political, economic, and cultural influence from the mainland. The social situation was very complicated. Xiangjiang's entertainment circle was also a self-circulating and relatively closed circle. Although there was communication with the domestic entertainment circle, there was a clear distinction between them. The locals of Xiangjiang usually only cared about the local artists and lacked interest in understanding the domestic stars. Xiangjiang's media would also selectively ignore the entertainment news from the domestic and only report the entertainment gossip from Hong Kong, or add in the news from Taiwan, Japan, Korea, Europe, and America. All of these were the embodiment of pride and independence, even if more and more people in the entertainment circle were constantly seeking opportunities to develop in China, and more Xinjiang artists appeared on domestic TV and movie screens. The Xinjiang government cooperated with the domestic state administration of radio, film and television to jointly formulate new regulations to support Xinjiang's film industry. They encouraged any film production company registered in Xinjiang to apply for preferential and support policies, and share the domestic and Xinjiang film market. On one hand, it was to revive the declining Xinjiang film industry, and on the other hand, it was to break the barrier. However, the specific effects still had to be proved by time. As one of the first batch of people to enter Xinjiang to register and establish a film and television organization, if Lu Qin's studio wanted to smoothly develop here, it was far from enough to rely on preferential and support policies. After decades of development, Xinjiang's film and television industry had already formed an inherent pattern of rules, which formed a natural barrier for those outsiders, and it was not easy to break it. Therefore, for Lu Qin to shoot a film in Xinjiang, it was not easy to hire a few cameramen, a sound recordist, or a crew, and so on. First, he had to understand, be familiar with, and finally understand how to use the rules here. Chen Wenxiang's suggestion was very simple, and that was to find a powerful local film and television company to co-shoot a new film. This was the fastest and easiest method, but it would be more troublesome to find out which film company was involved. In the 80s and 90s, there were countless local film and television companies in Xinjiang. The number of movies and TV series produced every year could be said to be astonishing, and they were continuously sold to China and Southeast Asia. Although the glory days were gone, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. Major film companies such as Jinrong, Wang Corporation, and Polaroid still firmly controlled the market and held the right to speak in the film and television industry. Chen Wenxiang did not have a high opinion of these old film companies. Even if they all had a glorious past, it would be very difficult for them to work alone or find a third or fourth-rate film company to steadily get a place to export to the mainland. The new problem is that big companies such as Jinrong, Wang and Polaroid are very difficult to deal with. Outsiders like Lu Qin Studio are also a newly established small enterprise. Even if they agree to cooperate, the conditions they offer are very high, even to the extent of harsh. This was the problem that troubled Wan Shaoquan the most. And if this step was not taken well, then the road ahead would be very difficult. Lu Qin could see that Wan Shaoquan was worried about this. He thought that this was probably the reason why Wan Shaoquan pulled him here, so he comforted him, "Don't worry, let's think of a way slowly." Since Lu Qin was here, he definitely wanted to help. Although he was not familiar with the people and places in Xinjiang, he could still contact a few people in the circle through his friends, such as Chen Fei, and Tan Hong. Chen Wenxiang did not say anything, because the level of cooperation in a film was very high, and he was familiar with the middle and lower level circle. He had no right to speak to the higher level of the film and television industry, so of course, he could not speak carelessly. They discussed in the meeting room for 2 hours and drew up a preliminary follow-up plan and work arrangement. After the temporary meeting, Chen Wenxiang said to Lu Qin, "Boss, it's your first time in Xinjiang. Can you let me treat you to Xinjiang's food today? It can be considered as a welcome dinner for you." Lu Qin smiled and said, "If you treat and I pay, then there's no problem." How could he let his subordinate treat him to a meal for the first time? Of course, he had to give face to Chen Wenxiang. Chen Wenxiang was stunned. Wan Shaoquan laughed and said, "That's it then, let's go." He reached out and patted Chen Wenxiang, who was still a little confused, and said, "Brother Chang, we don't have to save money for the boss. The song he writes for others costs more than 1 million. Ah." Li Zhen, who was sitting at the side, let out a soft cry. She looked at Lu Qin with stars in her eyes. Writing a song for others costs more than 1 million. Wouldn't he be able to buy a house in Xinjiang by writing a few dozen songs? Chen Wenxiang could not believe it. As far as he knew, the top songwriters in Xinjiang only cost 200,000 to 300,000 yuan per song. Lu Qin was several times more than them. Lu Qin was very good at original music, but this price was too amazing. Lu Qin did not know whether to laugh or cry. Uncle Chang, don't listen to Director Wan's nonsense. Let's go eat. The place Qin Wenxiang took Lu Qin to was the typhoon shelter in Causeway Bay. Together with Li Zhen and Zhang Xiaofang's 2 assistants, there was a total of 5 people. Everyone had dinner on a special cruise ship. While enjoying the beautiful scenery of Victoria Harbor, they tasted the first-class seafood. The real local specialties made Lu Qin full of praise. After eating this sumptuous seafood meal, Qin Wenxiang asked, "Boss, which hotel are you staying at tonight? Have you booked a room?" Lu Qin said, "I'm not staying in a hotel. My friend borrowed a house in Repulse Bay for me to stay. Brother Zhang will send me there first, and then you can arrange a place for him to stay." A house in Repulse Bay. Qin Wenxiang secretly sighed. That was the high-end residential area of Shangjiang. Mansions worth hundreds of millions could be found everywhere. He did not know which friend of Lu Qin had borrowed a house in Repulse Bay to stay. He quickly said, "No problem, then I will wait here for Xiaofang to come back. I will take him to the staff's apartment. The room has been arranged." Chapter 425. In the night, the black Mercedes-Benz MPV drove out of the typhoon shelter of Causeway Bay, entered Xiangdao Island through the Aberdeen Tunnel, and arrived at the Repulse Bay area in the east. In just 10 minutes, the scene was very different. Repulse Bay was located in the south of Taiping Mountain in Hong Kong Island. It was near the mountain and the sea. The bay was crescent-shaped and was known as the first bay in the world. It also had the reputation of Hawaii of the East. It was the most beautiful and representative bay in Hong Kong. It was not only the tourist area of Hong Kong, but also one of the famous high-end residential areas in Hong Kong Island. The area was full of luxury houses, surrounded by many 5-star hotels, ocean parks, golf courses, large supermarkets and other commercial facilities. Lu Chen's residence in Hong Kong was in the Wanjin apartment at number 268, Repulse Bay Road. "Your husband really had the foresight to buy a house here early." Wan Xiaoquan, who was sitting in the passenger seat, said to Lu Chen half jokingly and half seriously, "With the current housing prices here, I'm afraid I can't afford it even if I don't eat or drink for the rest of my life." Originally, Lu Chen asked his assistant Zhang Xiaofang to send him here. Although it was Zhang Xiaofang's first time in Hong Kong, the MPV had perfect navigation equipment, so he didn't have to worry about going the wrong way. However, Wan Xiaoquan was a little worried, and there was something else he wanted to say to Lu Chen, so he followed the car. Lu Chen said with a smile, "If things go well here, I think you will be able to afford it soon." The housing prices in Repulse Bay were extremely expensive. When Qin Fei bought this house with an area of only 137 square meters 10 years ago, she spent all her savings at that time and also applied for a bank mortgage loan. Now 10 years had passed, the market value of this house had increased at least 10 times. In terms of investment income, it was difficult for any project to compare with it. As early as more than 10 years ago, domestic celebrities began to buy properties in Hong Kong, and some even directly moved here, which also played a certain role in the rise of Hong Kong's housing prices. Qin Fei had bought 3 houses in Xiangjiang in total. The other 2 houses were bought by her when the real estate market rose sharply. This house in Repulse Bay was her favorite. She kept it for her vacation. Now, it just so happened that Lu Chen got a bargain. Otherwise, if he rented such a big house with such a good location in Xiangjiang, the monthly rent would be quite a shocking figure. Wan Xiaoquan shook his head and said, "If you buy one here, you can buy 2 or 3 in the capital." Lu Chen said, "Let's not talk about the house first. It's not good to have a car in Hong Kong. How about this, you and Uncle Chang go and buy 2 BMWs and put them into the studio's account. They will be your work car. Lu Qin had never been a stingy person, especially now that a TV series could bring in more than 100 million yuan. Buying a few cars was nothing at all. Wang Xiaoquan was the art director of Lu Chen's Xiangjiang studio and the director of the new film. Chen Wenxiang was the director of the studio. To a large extent, the two of them represented the image of the studio. If he didn't even have a decent car, he would also lose face. People in Xiangjiang were very particular about face. Even the managers of debt-ridden companies would still drive luxury cars. Otherwise, there would be no way to talk business with others. Wang Xiaoquan was surprised and moved. That's not good. Wang Xiaoquan usually needed a car, but Lu Qin gave him a BMW, which inevitably made him a little scared. After all, he came to Xiangjiang to set up a film studio and spent money like water. There was still no sign of shooting. He always felt that he didn't work hard enough and felt sorry for Lu Qin. Lu Qin said with a smile, "Nothing bad. It's settled. Let's go to the 4S store tomorrow." Seeing Lu Chen's stubbornness, Wang Xiaoquan had to accept Lu Chen's kindness. In his heart, he was more and more determined to work for Lu Qin. After experiencing the fickleness of human nature and the fickleness of the world, Wang Xiaoquan deeply understood how rare and precious Lu Chen's trust and kindness were for him. It was also the best opportunity for him to start over. The Mercedes-Benz stopped in front of a high-rise residential building. Lu Qin got out of the car and said to Zhang Xiaofang, "You go back with Director Wan first. I'll go up by myself. Pick me up at about 8:00 tomorrow morning." Zhang Xiaofang nodded and said, "Okay, boss." After saying goodbye to the two, Lu Qin walked to the apartment building alone. The residential buildings along Repulse Bay Road were all high-end communities, so the security was very tight. However, Lu Qin had the access card given to him by Qin Fei, and he had already informed the property management company here when he was in Beijing to update the security password and fingerprint information, so he entered the gate smoothly. Taking the elevator straight to the 58th floor, Lu Qin found the room 5801 where he lived. The brocade apartment had a total of 60 floors, which was also one of the characteristics of Hong Kong. The area was narrow and the usable area was small, so the buildings were built very high to make full use of the space. Repulse Bay was considered very good. The high-rise buildings in the real public community were densely packed to a terrifying degree. Beep! Lu Qin pressed his fingerprint on the door lock, and the red indicator light immediately turned green, and the door opened with a click. When he pushed the door in, the lights in the porch and the lights in the living room automatically lit up. The soft light evenly illuminated the whole space, and it gave a very warm feeling. Lu Qin casually closed the door, took off his shoes and observed his new house. This luxury apartment had a layout of 3 bedrooms, 2 living rooms, and 2 bathrooms. The decoration was very exquisite, and the designer's intention and creativity could be seen everywhere. Especially through the large floor-to-ceiling windows in the living room, one could directly see the distant view of the bay. The room was clean and tidy. It had already been cleaned by appointment. He walked over, pushed open the glass partition door, and walked to the big balcony. The gentle sea breeze blew, making people feel relaxed and happy. He looked up at the bright moon in the sky, saw the sparkling blue sea, and the long beach was dotted with bonfires. This scene made Lu Qin have the idea of living here for the rest of his life. Ring ring. Just then, his cell phone rang. Lu Qin picked it up directly. "Hello." Qin Fei, a sweet and moving voice came from the phone. "How is it? Are you home?" Lu Qin smiled and said, "I was just about to call you. I just got home." Qin Fei asked, "How is this apartment?" Lu Qin sighed and said, "It can't be better, so I decided not to work in the future. I'm going to live off you." Qin Fei laughed and said, "Nonsense, as long as you like it. I'm afraid you won't be used to it." Lu Qin asked, "How is it on your side?" Chen Fei complained, "It's very hard, much harder than filming Autumn in My Heart and Full of Romance." Chapter 426. Chen Fei was currently filming CCTV's new annual drama, Xingshi Changxing. The story was set in the Jingguan period of the Tang dynasty. She played the role of a beautiful singer. The TV series was 60 episodes long, with an investment of 170 million yuan. A large number of domestic stars, including several big shots in the film and television circle, were gathered in the show, so it attracted the attention of the industry. Although Chen Fei was not the first heroine, she had a lot of scenes, so it was impossible to finish shooting in a short time. Moreover, the director of the show was known for his strict requirements for actors in the industry. "I regret taking this show," Chen Fei complained in a sweet voice. "If I had known this, I would have gone to Hong Kong with you to shoot a movie. It must be very interesting." When she was filming Autumn in My Heart and Full House of Romance, the whole crew was around her and Lu Qin, and the service was meticulous. Moreover, the requirements for shooting an urban idol drama were low, so it was naturally much easier. In the crew of Xingshi Changxing, Chen Fei was not the first heroine. It was undoubtedly a fool's dream to expect others to accommodate her. However, this drama was very important for Chen Fei, who was developing in an all-round way in film, television, and singing. Once it was successfully filmed and broadcast next year, it would be of great help to improve her status in the circle. Therefore, although she complained, she still had to shoot the drama seriously. Lu Qin knew this, so he acted as a psychologist to comfort her. The two of them talked to each other on the phone, and the sweet phone call lasted for more than an hour. It was not until there was a low battery tone that Chen Fei seemed to wake up from a dream and said quickly, "Oh, my phone is almost out of battery. I forgot to tell you one thing. I have a friend in Hong Kong. You should know her. Her name is Xu Jing. I called her yesterday and mentioned you. She will probably send an invitation tomorrow to invite you to a charity dinner. There will be a lot of people in the circle." Lu Qin understood as soon as he heard this. He started his film career in Hong Kong without any foundation, so it could be said that he was unfamiliar with the people and the place. Chen Fei obviously wanted to bring Lu Qin into the circle of Xiangjiang through his relationship with Xu Jing. As long as he knew more useful people, his future development would undoubtedly be much smoother. The so-called charity banquet was actually a place for socializing. If one wanted to enter such an occasion, he or she would need a guide. Xu Jing was the one leading the way. Lu Qin didn't know Xu Jing, but he wasn't unfamiliar with her name. From the late 1990s to the beginning of the new century, this Xiangjiang singer, who debuted as a young girl, was very active in the pop music world. She had released many albums that sold well and won countless fans with her youthful and beautiful image and sweet voice. However, at the peak of her career, Xu Jing married into a wealthy family at a young age, and then disappeared from the music industry, which made people sigh. However, 2 years ago, Xu Jing suddenly announced that she had divorced and returned to the music industry. However, things were different now. After she stepped onto the stage again, she did not come up with any outstanding works. She was still famous, but her popularity was almost gone. In other words, she was an old singer of the past. In fact, Xu Jing was only 37 years old this year. For a powerful singer, the real golden age was far from over. However, Xu Jing was, after all, an all-powerful figure in the music industry of Xiangjiang. In addition, she had more than 10 years of life as a rich wife, so she had a wide range of contacts in all aspects. Chen Fei introduced Lu Qin to Xu Jing, undoubtedly because of the latter's connections. Chen Fei had known Xu Jing for a long time. When she bought the house in Repulse Bay, it was Xu Jing who recommended her. She used her connections to get a discount, so they were quite friends. After Xu Jing retired from the music industry, as long as she came to the capital, she would always find Chen Fei to have tea and chat. After ending the call with Chen Fei, Lu Chen's mobile phone was already very hot. After watching the scenery on the balcony for a while, Lu Chen was ready to go back to his room to take a shower and sleep, but his mobile phone rang again. He answered the phone without thinking, smiled and asked, "What's wrong? Did you forget anything else?" Lu Chen thought it was Chen Fei, calling again, but he didn't expect that the voice coming from the phone was very strange. "Hello, are you Mr. Lu Chen?" Lu Chen was stunned. "Yes, may I ask who you are?" The other party said, "I'm Xu Jing. I don't know if Fei has mentioned me to you. Sorry to disturb you." Lu Chen suddenly understood. "Hello, Sister Jing. I was talking to Fei on the phone just now, and she mentioned you." Xu Jing spoke Mandarin very well, without much Hong Kong accent. She said softly, "No wonder I couldn't get through to you just now. It's like this. I want to invite you to the charity dinner scheduled for the night after tomorrow at the Shangri-La Hotel. I wonder if you can do me the honor." Lu Chen quickly said, "It's my honor. I just came to Xiangjiang to develop my career. Please take care of me in the future, Sister Jing. I will definitely attend the dinner at the Shangri-La Hotel." "That's good," Xu Jing said with a smile. "I'll send someone to send the invitation to your company tomorrow morning. I'll confirm with you first." "Okay, thank you." After a few polite words, Lu Chen hung up the phone. Lu Chen didn't expect Xu Jing to call him at this time. Through this conversation, he had a good impression of Xu Jing and believed that she should be a friend worth making. This made Lu Chen somewhat look forward to the dinner the night after tomorrow. If there were no accidents, it would be his first step in the Xiangjiang entertainment circle, a very important step. After taking a shower in the bathroom, Lu Chen went to bed to rest. The next day, he got up early in the morning, put on a set of sportswear and went out to run. In the early morning, there were many people exercising along the beach of Shallow Water Bay. Some were running, and some were playing ball. Lu Chen ran a few laps back. When he returned home, he was already sweating profusely. After taking a shower and changing into new clothes, Zhang Xiaofang called. Lu Chen went downstairs again, got in his car, and went out for breakfast. Xiangjiang was a food paradise. There were all kinds of breakfast, and the most famous was the Cantonese breakfast. There were also several old tea-house chain stores in the Shallow Water Bay area, so he didn't have to worry about not being able to find a place. After breakfast, he went to the studio. It was exactly 9 o'clock. As soon as Lu Chen arrived at the office, Li Zhen took out a beautiful invitation and handed it to him. "This was just sent by Miss Xu Jing this morning. It was sent here so soon." Lu Chen was a little surprised. In fact, Li Zhen was even more surprised. She didn't expect Lu Chen to have a relationship with Xu Jing. Chapter 427. Xu Jing was very famous in Hong Kong's entertainment circle. She became famous overnight when she debuted at a young age, and her first album was a double platinum hit. She was called the Little Queen of the music industry. When her career was at its peak, she bravely retired and married into a rich family. She became the idol of many female artists. After getting married, Xu Jing no longer set foot in the entertainment circle, but her influence in the circle had always been there, especially the Happy Angel charity fund she founded, which was supported by many stars. A few years ago, Xu Jing's divorce case with the rich young master had caused a sensation in Hong Kong. After being single again, Xu Jing returned to the music circle. Although she was no longer as glorious as she used to be, her connections and reputation in the circle were still there. Xu Jing often held charity banquets to raise money for her angel fund, and the people invited were all celebrities and stars in the circle of Hong Kong's upper class. Those small singers and artists couldn't get in even if they sharpened their brains. Lu Qin had just arrived in Hong Kong, but Xu Jing took the initiative to send an invitation letter, which made Li Zhen have a new view of her boss's background and strength. She asked with concern, "Boss, did you bring clothes for the banquet this time? Do you want me to send them to the dry cleaner for re-ironing?" Lu Qin said with a smile, "No, fortunately you reminded me. I'll buy 2 sets today." He came to Hong Kong with light luggage this time. He only had a few sets of ordinary clothes in his carry-on luggage. He really didn't wear a suitable dress for Xu Jing's charity banquet. If it weren't for Li Zhen's reminder, he wouldn't have thought of it. Li Zhen had completely entered the role of a personal assistant and secretary, and she considerately suggested, "It's too late to make a custom order now. I know several master tailors have to make a reservation 1 or 2 months in advance." "Boss, what brand of clothes do you like?" If he couldn't make a custom order, he could only buy ready-made clothes. Lu Qin thought for a moment and said, "Armani." Lu Qin liked Armani suits and coats the most, and he often wore them in China. Li Zhen clapped her hands. "Armani's headquarters in Hong Kong is in Central. I know the location." Lu Qin said with a smile, "Let's go together. Let's buy a car first and then clothes." Li Zhen was surprised. "Boss, you want to buy a car?" Lu Qin nodded. "Buy a BMW for Director Wan and Uncle Chong first. They need it very much." Li Zhen was rendered speechless. She had come out to work for a living and had worked for several bosses. She had also seen a lot of different bosses. Li Zhen has never seen a boss as forthright and generous as Lu Qin. There were stingy people everywhere in the entertainment industry. Some stars were even so stingy that they couldn't bear to buy lunch boxes for their assistants. This was no longer news. As soon as Lu Qin arrived, he gave 2 BMWs to the 2 managers of the studio. Moreover, he said it as if he had bought 2 pieces of clothes, which really made Li Zhen secretly click her tongue. Was it really that easy to make money for Chinese celebrities? Li Zhen looked at Lu Qin with stars in her eyes. Not only was he forthright and generous, he was also so young, handsome, and talented. He was simply a diamond bachelor in the entertainment industry. It was estimated that he would be very popular in the future. Li Zhen didn't think that others wouldn't have a chance just because Lu Qin had a heavenly queen as his girlfriend, because this was Hong Kong. Of course, she knew that she definitely didn't have a chance, the gap was too big. Lu Qin didn't know that because of his words, the little secretary's mind had turned so many thoughts. He called Wan Xiaoquan and Qin Wenxiang to do all the things that should be done today. He called Wan Xiaoquan and Qin Wenxiang to do all the things that should be done today. There were 5 people in the MPV again. Qin Wenxiang was the one with the most complicated feelings in his heart. Qin Wenxiang's life experience was much richer and more bumpy than Li Zhen's. He was used to the fickleness of human nature and the fickleness of the world. He had already hardened his heart and wouldn't be easily moved by anything. Even so, Lu Chen's generosity and trust still made him feel that he had followed the right person this time. Qin Wenxiang wouldn't say any words of gratitude, nor would he show too much expression of being moved. He just remembered it in his heart and would naturally show it at work in the future. Led by Lu Qin himself, the group of people first went to the BMW flagship store in Hong Kong to book 2 cars, then went to the Armani main store to buy clothes, and finally went to the Commerce Department in Hong Kong to take photos and sign the documents, completing all the final registration procedures of the studio. At this point, Lu Qin Film and Television Studio officially settled in Hong Kong and had the legal qualification to operate. At the same time, Lu Qin also represented the studio and submitted an application for the local film and television support program to the Commerce Department. Once this application was approved, the movies and TV shows shot by the studio would not only receive tax incentives and government funding support, but also be broadcasted and screened in Hong Kong and the mainland through the Green Channel. This was the most fundamental reason why Lu Qin went south to Hong Kong and started his film career here. In fact, there were many mainland film companies investing in Hong Kong like him. In the foreseeable future, the Hong Kong film industry, which was about to become a pool of stagnant water, was bound to surge and there would be fierce competition. The black Mercedes-Benz business car steadily stopped in front of the Shangri-La Hotel. The door slid open silently, and a man wearing a dark gray Armani suit got out of the car and stood firmly on the red carpet. The surrounding corners immediately lit up with flashes. Lu Qin couldn't help but frown. He didn't expect that a charity dinner could actually attract so many paparazzi. The paparazzi in Hong Kong were famous. They were good at tracking and digging up the privacy of celebrities. They could be said to be the most troublesome existence for star artists. As long as there was a star artist, there was bound to be an active figure. Someone once said that the entertainment newspapers and magazines in Hong Kong were basically supported by paparazzi. Without their existence, Hong Kong's entertainment circle would be too lonely, and they were indispensable. It was also because of this kind of fearlessness that the Xiangjiang paparazzi were particularly bold and even arrogant. They even did not hesitate to cheat and deceive for the sake of news. It was also later that it caused public indignation in the entertainment circle and caused a strong counterattack. In recent years, they had restrained themselves and did not dare to write and shoot unscrupulously. Even so, for Lu Qin, the Xiangjiang paparazzi were the target that he had to guard against. They were much less moral than their domestic counterparts. Before coming to Hong Kong, Chen Fei had specially reminded Lu Qin about this. However, while Lu Qin was thinking about guarding against the paparazzi lying in ambush near the hotel were dumbfounded. "Hey, who is this guy? Why have I never seen him before?" Chapter 428. One Champion, Singing China. Two big selling albums, You Who Sat Next to Me and The Ordinary Road. Two phenomenal TV series, Autumn in My Heart and Full House of Romance. Lu Qin has only made his debut for more than a year, but with his strong strength and dazzling achievements, he has risen to fame in the domestic entertainment circle and has countless fans. If he doesn't wear sunglasses or disguise himself when he walks on the street, he will definitely be surrounded by people, and he has also encountered many situations where he has been surrounded by passers-by. But in Hong Kong, there are really few people who know and are familiar with him. These people definitely do not include the paparazzi squatting at the entrance of the Shangri-La Hotel at this moment. They are completely out of professional instinct to take pictures of every guest who attended the banquet tonight, hoping to get some useful information from them. However, Lu Qin, who has just been captured in the camera, is very strange to the paparazzi. A senior paparazzi would usually have a database in his head. The content of the database was the figures and appearances of the celebrities in Xiangjiang, as well as the celebrities in the business world. This way, as long as he found a target, he would be able to immediately identify them. Lu Qin is obviously not in this database. He looks very young, tall, big, handsome, and impeccable in appearance. He is definitely a first-class man, not like an ordinary person. A rich child who has returned from overseas. Was it a newly established company? The paparazzi in Hong Kong have never cared about mainland stars, because the people of Hong Kong only like to read the entertainment gossip and scandals of local artists, so they inevitably misunderstand the identity of Lu Qin. If he is a person in the entertainment circle, as outstanding as Lu Qin, it is impossible for everyone not to know him. Because of the mystery, the paparazzi present have a little interest in Lu Qin. After all, the guests who are eligible to attend Shu Jing charity banquet in the evening are not ordinary people. There are 3 entrances and exits of the Shangri-La Hotel, and the middle passage connected to the red carpet and revolving door is reserved for the dinner guests. After showing his invitation to the doorman, Lu Qin and his assistant Li Jun walked through the revolving door into the magnificent hall. 2 rows of flower baskets were neatly arranged on both sides of the staircase leading to the second floor of the hall. Lu Chen walked up the stairs and soon arrived at the banquet above. On the way upstairs, he suddenly felt a little uneasy, as if he had neglected something. But he couldn't remember. There were dozens of tables in the main banquet hall. The snow-white tablecloths were matched with delicate flowers and silver cutlery. There were already many guests seated before the banquet started. A band was playing on the stage. Lu Chen soon discovered that a beautiful lady in a purple evening dress was standing under a huge crystal chandelier. She was chatting and laughing with a few well-dressed gentlemen and ladies. She was clearly the focus of the entire hall. Xu Jing. Lu Chen had seen Xu Jing's photo before, and she was so dazzling, so he could easily recognize her. After pondering for a moment, Lu Chen walked straight towards Xu Jing. Xu Jing's senses were very sensitive. As soon as Lu Chen walked over, her attention turned to him. Her limpid eyes fell on Lu Chen, and there was a trace of doubt in her eyes. But very quickly, the doubt turned into joy. "Excuse me," she said to the person next to her, then turned to greet Lu Chen and asked, "Lu Chen?" Lu Chen nodded and said, "Hello, Sister Jing." Xu Jing was 37 years old this year, but she took good care of herself. She looked like she was in her early 30s. She had phoenix eyes and willow leaf eyebrows. Her facial features were outstanding, and her makeup was exquisite. She had a mature charm that young girls couldn't reach. In terms of appearance, she couldn't compare to Qin Fei, but her graceful bearing had a unique charm. Her smile was like a spring breeze, making people unconsciously want to get close to her. "It really is you. I was wondering when you would come." Xu Jing took the initiative to extend her hand to Lu Chen. "Actually, I've long wanted to see what the man Fei chose is like." Lu Chen shook her hand and said with a smile, "I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you." Xu Jing looked at Lu Chen carefully and said, "On the contrary, he's more outstanding than I thought. Fei's taste is always so good. It's really enviable." She joked half-jokingly and unknowingly narrowed the distance between them. "How does it feel to come to Xiangjiang for the first time?" Lu Chen said, "It's very beautiful, Sister Jing." As the two were chatting, a frivolous voice suddenly came from the side. "Who is this? You look very unfamiliar." Lu Chen turned his head and saw a young man in a white suit who interrupted. He looked to be in his 20s or 30s. He was not tall, and his hair was neatly combed and smeared with a lot of hair wax. It was glossy. Seeing Lu Chen's gaze, the man in the white suit gave him a disdainful look. There was a middle-aged man beside the man in the white suit with a smile on his face. He first nodded to Lu Chen in a friendly manner, but soon his attention was on Xu Jing. Xu Jing's eyebrows wrinkled slightly, and then immediately stretched out. She said with a smile, "Lu Chen, let me introduce you. This is Liang Jiaxing, the general manager of Enchanting Pictures. This is Liang Zhihao, the nephew of Mr. Liang. Enchanting Pictures." Lu Chen had never heard of it. It was definitely not one of the large film and television companies in Xiangjiang. However, since it was invited by Xu Jing, it must be powerful. Liang Jiaxing gave a good impression on the surface, unlike his nephew, who had the words "superficial and impetuous" written on his face, but this made Lu Chen feel a little vigilant. This kind of person was best at hiding a dagger behind a smile. Keeping an appropriate distance was the best choice. He said calmly, "Nice to meet you, Mr. Liang." Lu Chen directly ignored Liang Zhihao, which made the latter so angry that his nose became crooked. Xu Jing introduced him again. "This is Lu Chen, who just came from the mainland. He is my good friend's boyfriend." Liang Jiaxing laughed and said, "You really look talented." He shook hands with Lu Chen and asked casually, "Are you going to develop your career in Xiangjiang, Mr. Lu? I can help you introduce some useful friends." Lu Chen smiled faintly and said, "Thank you, Mr. Liang. I will definitely ask you for help if I need it." In fact, it was nonsense. As the saying goes, one who is unaccountably solicitous is hiding evil intentions. Lu Chen's intuition told him that Mr. Liang had some kind of ambition for Xu Jing. His nephew was just a tool for him to use. He jumped out probably because Xu Jing had a good chat with him just now. "Do I look like a gigolo?" Lu Chen was speechless in his heart. As a result, the tool jumped out again and asked loudly, "You're from the mainland. What did you bring for Sister Jing tonight?" Lu Chen couldn't help but frown. He knew the reason why he was uneasy just now. Chapter 429. Lu Chen definitely didn't have the ability to predict the future. He couldn't predict that there would be an accident at the charity banquet. Liang Zhihao jumped out to make trouble for him. Although it was very inexplicable, it also made Lu Chen realize that he had made a mistake. He should have learned more about the banquet before attending. For example, if there were any rules or things to pay attention to, he would have come directly. Of course, he definitely brought the checkbook. He thought that bringing money was enough. But the fact was obviously not so. Seeing Lu Chen's stupefied expression, Liang Zhihao revealed an expression of, "I knew it would be like this," and laughed loudly. "Ha, you really are from the mainland. No wonder you don't know our rules here. Let me tell you, in Sister Jing's charity banquet, the auction items are all contributed by everyone." His laughter was particularly ear-piercing and attracted the attention of many other guests. Liang Zhihao obviously wanted to embarrass Lu Chen on purpose. Lu Chen didn't mind, but Xu Jing almost couldn't bear it anymore. Her pretty face seemed to be covered with a layer of frost. Xu Jing's temper had always been very good, but Liang Zhihao was jumping up and down to make things difficult for the guests she invited. Wasn't he making her lose face? There were already dozens of guests in the hall. As a result, before Xu Jing had time to speak, Liang Jiaxing beat her to it and scolded, "Zhihao, you can't be so rude. You keep saying that you are from the mainland. We are all Miss Xu Jing's guests. What are you doing here?" Liang Zhihao was very in awe of his uncle. He shrank his head and didn't say anything. Liang Jiaxing said to Lu Chen apologetically, "Mr. Lu, I'm really sorry. My nephew is stubborn and doesn't follow the rules. Please don't take it to heart." His attitude was very sincere and impeccable, but Lu Chen felt that something was wrong. Especially the word rules in his words sounded particularly ear-piercing. Old fox. Lu Chen cursed in his heart, but he didn't show it on the surface, as if there was no grudge. He smiled and said, "Mr. Liang, you're too serious. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. Since this is the rule of Hong Kong, I should naturally follow it. I have to thank your nephew for reminding me." Lu Chen turned his head and said to Li Zhen beside him, "Give me a business card and a pen." Li Zhen had seen everything that had happened just now. Her heart was filled with anxiety and guilt. Tonight was the first time for this kind of charity banquet hosted by celebrities, and it was also the first time for him to enter the local entertainment circle. It was such an important event that she forgot to tell Lu Chen that it was the rules of the charity banquet. This kind of charity dinner hosted by celebrities was usually played by inviting friends in the circle or upper-class people in the social circle to attend. Those who were invited to the party would donate an auction item, such as a watch, a painting, a string of jewelry, or even a branded bag that had not been used before. At that time, the auction items would take turns to be auctioned. You could bid for your own item or compete with others for the item you like. However, under normal circumstances, the auction price would not be raised too high. In fact, it was a social game. Li Zhen had attended 2 charity banquets before, so she knew it very well. She had failed in her duty. Li Zhen was still thinking about how to make up for it, but Lu Chen actually asked her to take a business card and a pen. She answered in a daze and hurriedly took out Lu Chen's business card and pen from her bag. Lu Chen's business card was just made today. Why did Lu Chen take out her business card? He couldn't be giving one to Liang Jiaxing, could he? That would be a joke. However, Lu Chen didn't mean that at all. He took the business card and pen from Li Zhen, wrote a few words on the north side of the business card, and handed it to Xu Jing. Lu Chen smiled and said, "Sister Jing, this is my charity auction item tonight." Xu Jing took it in confusion. Her eyes swept over the business card. She was puzzled at first, but then she suddenly realized. She pursed her lips and smiled. This must be the most special auction item tonight. Thank you, Lu Chen. Lu Chen nodded gracefully. Sister Jing, you're welcome. The two echoed each other. Liang Jiaxing and Liang Zhihao, who were next to them, were extremely curious. They didn't know what Lu Chen was trying to do. He took out a business card and wrote a few words. Moreover, it was highly recognized by Xu Jing. However, the two of them couldn't take the business card from Xu Jing's hands to see what was on it. Liang Jiaxing was shrewd and acted normal, but Liang Zhihao's wandering eyes were a bit ridiculous. Xu Jing was very annoyed with the uncle and nephew. She even regretted giving them an invitation. She put away Lu Chen's business card and said to Lu Chen with a smile, "It's your first time in Hong Kong. I'll introduce some friends to you." Lu Chen couldn't have asked for more. "Thank you, Sister Jing." Xu Jing said to the uncle and nephew, "Please help yourselves. I have to go now." The two of them could only pretend to smile and say that it was okay. Then they left resentfully. After getting rid of the Liang family's uncle and nephew, Xu Jing obviously breathed a sigh of relief. She said softly to Lu Chen, "I'm really sorry. This Mr. Liang may have some ideas about me, but I don't think about emotional problems now." Lu Chen suddenly understood and nodded to show that he understood. No wonder Liang Jiaxing put on a fake smile. He thought that he was a competitor. However, Liang Zhihao's attitude was a bit thought-provoking. From this son of a rich family, Lu Chen finally saw some people in the upper class of Xiangjiang, that kind of stale sense of superiority and the mentality of rejection of outsiders. In the past few decades, the development of the mainland was far faster than that of Hong Kong. Hong Kong was no longer a synonym for poverty and backwardness. The living standards of international metropolises such as the capital, Shanghai, and Shenzhen were not worse than that of Hong Kong. They were even better in some aspects. However, some people in Hong Kong couldn't see or ignored this point intentionally or unintentionally. They were still immersed in the glory of the past and didn't face the huge and irreplaceable impact of the mainland market and resources on Hong Kong. They stuck to their old ways and closed their circle, which led to the development of many aspects lagging behind the times. Hong Kong's once brilliant film and television industry was one of the best examples. And what made Lu Chen feel even more interesting was that Xu Jing actually told him so straightforwardly, as if she was telling her troubles to a real friend. This kind of trusting attitude undoubtedly narrowed the distance between them. With Xu Jing's introduction, Lu Chen got to know many upper-class people in the local circle. Some of them were the bosses of film and television companies, some were the chief editors of entertainment newspapers and magazines, and a few stars and artists. Apart from the small accident just now, his debut in Hong Kong's social circle was a good start. Chapter 430. Xu Jing was the organizer of the charity banquet, so she was the well-deserved protagonist. As a guest, Lu Chen was definitely a supporting character. Of course, the protagonist couldn't accompany the supporting character all the time. She had other guests to entertain. Therefore, after taking Lu Chen around the banquet hall, she could only apologize and say, "Excuse me." Lu Chen expressed his understanding and gratitude. He had gained enough tonight. You should eat something, Lu Chen said to his assistant, don't worry about me. Eat first. Li Zhen was still a little embarrassed and said apologetically, Boss, next time I receive such an invitation, I will definitely pay attention. Please rest assured. She had been holding these words in her heart for a long time, and now she finally had the opportunity to say them. Li Zhen cherished her current job very much. Her boss was young, handsome, and generous. The treatment in the studio was even better. If her mistake caused Lu Chen to lose face, she would have no face to continue staying. Lu Chen smiled and said, It's not your fault. Go and get something to eat, or else all the delicious food will be taken away. This charity banquet was a buffet. The long table covered with a snow-white tablecloth was filled with Western-style dishes and desserts. The dishes were rich and classy. Those who were invited to the banquet were not ordinary people, so there was no such thing as the delicious food being taken away. Lu Chen was just joking, which made Li Zhen laugh and her tense heart relax. Lu Chen asked the waiter for a steak, red wine, and a lunch bag. He chose a seat in the corner and sat down, ready to eat. Hello, may I ask? As soon as he picked up his knife and fork, a young woman appeared in front of him gracefully. She asked in an uncertain tone, Are you Teacher Lu Chen? This woman in a goose-yellow dress was very beautiful. She was in her 20s, had an oval face, big eyes, and long eyelashes like 2 rows of small fans. Her skin was white, and she was young and beautiful. She also wore a pair of silver and diamond earrings. She was beautiful, but Lu Chen was unfamiliar with her. He stood up and asked, I'm Lu Chen, and you are? Teacher was not a popular form of address in Xiangjiang. It sounded especially intimate. Therefore, even though he did not know the other party, Lu Chen was still polite. The young woman smiled sweetly and took the initiative to stretch out her hand to Lu Chen. It's really you. I didn't expect to see the male lead of Autumn in My Heart in Hong Kong. I'm your fan, Su Hui. Nice to meet you. Hello. Lu Chen shook hands with her and asked curiously, Have you read Autumn in My Heart? Although Autumn in My Heart had been broadcast in the mainland for more than half a year, this domestic phenomenal urban romance drama had not yet entered Hong Kong, Taiwan, and other places. I've seen it 3 times. Su Hui smiled and said, Every time I watch it, I cry. You and Chen Fei acted so well. This TV series is really touching. I watched it online, and I really hope that the local TV station can also broadcast it. If it's broadcast locally, it should be soon. Lu Chen was also not very sure, because these things related to copyright and broadcasting were all handled by Lu Shi. Su Hui asked, Teacher Lu Chen, may I ask if you came to Xiangjiang to travel and visit friends, or are you preparing to develop your career here? She added, I want to invite you to have a meal together. I have a lot of things to ask you. This Su Hui's attitude was undoubtedly very sincere, but Lu Chen did not know her background at all. Naturally, it was not good to rashly agree to anything. He smiled and said, You don't have to be polite to treat me to a meal. Let me give you my business card. He handed over a business card of his own. Su Hui took it with both hands and looked at it carefully. She was surprised. Lu Chen Film and Television Studio. Ah, you really plan to develop in Xiangjiang. That's really great. Lu Chen asked, May I ask who you are? Ah. Su Hui stuck out her tongue. She embarrassedly took out her business card from her bag and presented it. I'm an artist and also Sister Xu Jing's junior sister. Please give me some pointers, Teacher Lu. It was rare to meet a stranger who knew him. Moreover, she was an artist, so Lu Chen chatted with this Su Hui for a while. The two sides chatted quite happily. Su Hui knew the plot of Autumn in My Heart like the back of her hand. Moreover, she also had a CD album of Lu Chen's You Who Sat Next to Me, which she bought online. Su Hui was very polite. She did not take up too much of Lu Chen's time. She quickly said goodbye and left. As soon as she left, Xu Jing appeared right behind her. The heroine of tonight's charity dinner looked at Su Hui's back with a meaningful look. She sat beside Lu Chen and said, "You get along well with Su Hui." Lu Chen faintly smiled and said, "It's all right." She said, "She's your junior sister from the same sect." "She's from the Su family," Xu Jing said. "We signed with the same teacher in the same company. Some people say that she is very similar to me in the past, but she is definitely not as stupid as me." Speaking of this, Xu Jing's face showed a bitter smile. However, she immediately restrained her wry smile and said to Lu Chen, "My little junior sister is not someone to be trifled with. She often makes news with others, so I have to be responsible for fair." Lu Chen nodded and said, "Thank you for reminding me." He understood what Xu Jing meant. However, he came to Hong Kong to develop his film career, not to make some gossip news and make headlines. Naturally, he understood the principle of propriety. Although a woman like Su Hui was very charming, she was not Lu Chen's cup of tea. Xu Jing smiled and said, "As long as you don't think I'm annoying. Eat quickly. The auction will start later." After sending Xu Jing away again, the steak that Lu Chen ordered was almost cold. He did not dislike it. He waved his knife and fork and wiped it out without wasting anything. After filling their stomachs, it was almost time. After the guests finished eating, the waiters took away the tableware and dishes and replaced them with new tablecloths. Soft music sounded and echoed in the hall. On the performance stage, Xu Jing gracefully appeared. She first expressed her gratitude to the guests, then introduced the charity projects that her charity foundation was currently implementing, and finally announced the official start of the auction. Lu Chen received a plate from a waiter. His number was 39. Then on the stage was replaced by an auctioneer in a black tuxedo. The first auction item of Miss Xu Jing's charity auction tonight is. The auctioneer did not waste time and went straight to the point. He announced loudly, "An antique watch donated by Sir Kai Hong. The starting price is 10,000 yuan. Chapter 431. As soon as the auctioneer's voice fell, an etiquette lady wearing a cheongsam came forward and showed the first auction item to the hundreds of guests in the banquet hall with a smile on her face. This auction item was a famous antique watch, which belonged to a real collector's item. The starting price of 10,000 yuan was undoubtedly just a gimmick, and someone immediately raised the price to more than 200,000 yuan. 250,000 yuan. This gentleman bids 250,000 yuan, 300,000 yuan. Our beautiful Miss Yuan Ziyun bids 300,000 yuan, 300,000 yuan. Okay, now it's 450,000 yuan from the Honorable Mrs. Heat, 500,000 yuan. The people who attended this charity banquet were celebrities from Shenzhang's upper class and entertainment circle. Many of them often went to such social occasions, so they were naturally very familiar with their faces. The auctioneer basically knew all of them. However, unlike ordinary auctions, the auction house of the charity banquet was very competitive. Everyone bid against each other to raise the price, mainly to liven up the atmosphere. Therefore, when the bidding price of this auction item was close to its actual value, there were already very few people who raised their placards. In the end, Kai Hong won his auction item at a price of 580,000 yuan. "Thank you, Sir Kai Hong, for your generous donation to poor children." As the auctioneer made the final decision, the audience burst into warm applause. The white-haired old knight stood up and reservedly expressed his gratitude to the applauding guests. This was also very common in charity auctions. Some people would take out their beloved collections to auction, and then bid back for themselves, donating money and showing off at the same time. The guests had a tacit understanding that under such circumstances, no one would suddenly jump out to bid with the original owner at a high price. Those who did not abide by the rules would only be ostracized by the circle. Li Jin dutifully and quietly told Lu Qin what she knew. The two of them very low-key sat in a corner and participated in this charity auction as bystanders. After the first auction item was successfully auctioned, the following items were auctioned one after another. The speed and frequency of the auctions were very fast. Only a few outstanding auction items without the original owner's participation attracted a relatively fierce bidding. Lu Qin bid once and won a Chanel limited edition bag at the price of 50,000 yuan. He transferred the branded bag to his assistant on the spot. For me, Li Zhen was pleasantly surprised. She simply couldn't believe it. With her income, even if she clenched her teeth and saved up half a year's salary, she would still be able to afford such a branded bag. However, the price of goods in Xiangjiang was very high, and the living expenses were huge. If she had to fork out 50,000 renminbi to buy a bag, she would definitely be unwilling. On the street stalls at night, you could buy a replica for 50 yuan. However, even though she was reluctant to part with it, very few girls could resist the temptation of a branded bag. Therefore, when she suddenly received this special gift, Li Zhen's mood could be imagined. "Boss, you'll make me fall in love with you." After getting along for a few days, Li Zhen had a good understanding of her new boss's personality and temper. Lu Qin was generous, and easygoing. He never put on airs like a boss and was undoubtedly a person who was easy to get along with. Therefore, she dared to make a harmless joke. It might not necessarily be a joke. Lu Qin couldn't help laughing. "You don't have to fall in love with me. I already have a girlfriend. In the future, you should work hard." Lu Qin had always been generous to the people who followed him. Yesterday, he gave 2 BMWs. Today, it was not a big deal to bid a bag for his assistant and secretary. In the future, he would inevitably rely on Li Zhen in his work and life. "Thank you, boss." Li Zhen touched the bag in her hand happily, thinking about the scene of taking it out to make her friends envious. The next auction item is a little special. At this moment, the auctioneer standing on the stage introduced a new auction item. His expression was a little strange as he said, "It was donated by Mr. Lu Qin. It's a song that hasn't been written yet." As soon as the auctioneer's voice fell, the banquet hall suddenly burst into an uproar. The previous auction items that had been successfully auctioned included branded jewelry, watches, bags, antique handicrafts and so on. Now, a song that hasn't been written yet suddenly popped up, which made people feel very inconceivable. The most important thing was that not many people knew who Lu Qin was or had heard of his name. Was this auction item really not taken out to be a joke? Some of the guests were surprised, some were confused, some sneered, and some whispered with others, which made the atmosphere of the scene a little awkward. Someone asked loudly, "A song that hasn't been written yet can be auctioned for charity. Is there a mistake?" The person who stood up to question was none other than Liang Zhihao. Previously, he didn't like Lu Qin, but he couldn't make things difficult for Lu Qin, so he always took it to heart. Now that Lu Qin's charity auction item appeared, it was actually just a song. This not only solved the doubts in his heart, but also gave him a new opportunity to mock Lu Qin. Who is Lu Qin? I've never heard of him. Although Liang Zhihao's shouting was very rude, his question still resonated with many guests present. Many people looked at Xu Jing, who was sitting in front. The auction items that could be auctioned were all donated by the guests. Xu Jing's charity foundation had been established for many years and had held dozens of fundraising banquets. How could such a thing happen? The auctioneer was very experienced. Seeing such a situation, he immediately explained, "Mr. Lu Qin is a famous singer in the mainland. His works have won many awards and he has a high status in the mainland pop music industry. The guests who bid for this song can get a work customized by Mr. Lu Qin or a designated person. The starting price is 10,000 yuan. Unlike the previous situation where someone immediately bid, the banquet hall fell into a subtle silence. The atmosphere was not right. Liang Zhihao said sarcastically, "So you're from the mainland. No wonder I've never heard of you." He was implying something. Several guests laughed, and some showed a sarcastic look on their faces. It would be strange if someone bid for such a sensational auction item. Maybe this would be the first auction item that would not be auctioned tonight. Then there would be a good show to watch. This guy, Li Zhen, was so angry that her eyes turned red. Liang Zhihao had gone too far. Lu Chen had no grievances with him. They didn't even know each other before today. How could he be targeted like this? However, Lu Chen, as the person involved, was very calm. He came over to comfort his assistant. "We don't need to pay attention to him. It's not worth getting angry for him." But Li Zhen bit her lip. She wanted to say that with Liang Zhihao messing things up like this, how could Lu Chen's song be auctioned? How could he continue to stay here? Chapter 432. 300,000. Just as Liang Zhihao was complacent, the auctioneer was embarrassed and speechless, and the atmosphere was subtle. A clear voice broke the silence in the banquet hall in an instant. At this time, everyone's eyes looked in the direction of the voice. It was a beautiful woman in a yellow dress who raised the paddle to bid. She sat at the table with a smile, as if she didn't notice the strange eyes from all directions, and said again, 300,000. The banquet hall seemed to be like a deep pool that had been thrown into a stone, inevitably setting off waves. Who is this? I know her, a daughter of the Su family. Which Su family? Which Su family can there be? It's that Su family. Even if you have money, you can't spend it recklessly. 300,000 to buy a song. It's Ouyang Dirong's work, but who is this Lu Qin? Su Hui is Xu Jing's junior sister. She may be helping her senior sister to smooth things over. Oh, that's normal. Many people recognized the woman who raised the paddle and immediately began to talk about it. Liang Zhihao's smile froze on his face. He also recognized Su Hui, and he also heard the discussion around him. Damn, a gigolo is so popular. The young master of the Liang family could only curse Lu Qin for being so lucky. He didn't dare to vent his anger on Su Hui, because he couldn't afford to offend a member of the Su family, even if she was the famous rebellious daughter of the Su family, who was not favored by her family. Even his uncle couldn't do it. In Hong Kong, the power of the famous families was very powerful. Those who were qualified to be listed as rich and powerful were all families with deep background, wide connections, and political and economic foundations. The Su family was one of them. As soon as Su Hui raised the paddle, the embarrassment faced by Lu Qin was instantly resolved, and Xu Jing's face was saved. Lu Qin was very surprised. He didn't expect that the woman he had chatted with would help him out of trouble, and directly raised the bidding price to 300,000. Just now, Lu Qin planned to let Li Zhen raise the paddle to take a selfie. Even if it might be a little embarrassing, it was better than no one asking. But Xu Jing's mind was much more complicated. Only she knew in her heart that Su Hui's act of shooting Lu Chen's song was definitely not to support her. The fact that this rebellious daughter of the Su family didn't cause a scene was already a great thing. What's wrong? You're still not out of the picture. Su Hui waved the bidding card in her hand and asked the auctioneer on the stage. The auctioneer, who was in a daze, suddenly woke up as if he had just woken up from a dream. He quickly said loudly, 300,000. Miss Su Hui bids 300,000. Is there a higher bid? Although it was customary to ask, the auctioneer did not think that anyone would bid a higher price, so he raised the hammer and was about to knock it down. Charity auctions were not as particular as regular auctions. Speed and efficiency were the most important. 350,000. Just when everyone thought that this was going to be the final word, another voice suddenly rang out. He actually dared to bid against Su Hui. Everyone's gazes turned over once again to see who exactly was messing with Su Hui's plans. The one who made the bid was a middle-aged woman in her 40s or 50s. Seeing that everyone was looking at her, she said with a smile, "My Xiao Dai will debut next month and lacks a title song, so I can only apologize to Miss Su." Everyone couldn't understand what was happening. Basically all the guests present knew this graceful middle-aged woman. She was Jean Mingxiu, the boss of Madame Jean Entertainment Company, a famous performing arts agency in Xiangjiang. Jean Mingxiu was born in a prestigious family. She founded an entertainment company in her 20s, involved in the production of movies and TV variety shows, and trained artists and singers. For decades, she had sent a large number of talents to the entertainment industry in Xiangjiang. Famous actors Lu Jian, Gu Rong, singers Gao Mingfeng, Li Li, and so on were all taught by Madame Jean. Although Su Hui was from the Su family, she was not strong enough to compete with Madame Jean alone. Madame Jean had a good relationship with Xu Jing. What everyone didn't understand was that if Madame Jean wanted to help Xu Jing out, then Su Hui could bid for it. What was the point of Madame Jean interfering? It couldn't be that she was angry with Su Hui, right? Madame Jean was not that bored. Su Hui was the one who was really angry. She said with a cold face, "The auction depends on who bids higher. No one is sorry to anyone. I bid 500,000. She raised the bidding card again. Madame Jin's smile did not change. "That's true. Then I will bid 600,000. In the blink of an eye, the starting price of 10,000 yuan was raised to 600,000 yuan, and it seemed that there was no sign of it ending. Generally speaking, such a situation rarely occurred at charity auctions. The purpose of everyone here was not to bid for a family heirloom. First, it was to socialize, and second, it was to do charity. Therefore, even if there was an auction item that they liked and many people bid for it, everyone would talk to each other. Whoever had the bigger face would get it. Everyone was happy. Madame Jean and Su Hui were directly against each other, not giving in at all. They were like enemies. But no one had heard of any grudges between the two. However, some insiders who knew about the industry were silent. Because if Madame Jean really bid for the title song of her new artist, the price of 600,000 yuan was far beyond the highest level in the industry. In the pop music industry of Xiangjiang, the top price of a work with lyrics and music was between 300,000 yuan and 400,000 yuan. With Madame Jin's status and reputation in the circle, she had too many choices. There was no need for her to argue with Su Hui. Madame Jean was not so superficial. So the question was, what prompted her to do this? Probably aware of the doubts of others, Madame Jean deliberately explained, "Mr. Lu Qin is the most outstanding singer-songwriter in the mainland. Each of his works is excellent." The auctioneer had said similar words just now, but not many people took it seriously. But now that it was said by Madame Jean, the effect was completely different. "As far as I know, the price of one of his songs is about 1 million yuan, and the album, Woman Flower, which he produced for his girlfriend, Miss Chen Fei, has sold more than 5 million yuan. 5 million record sales." Several insiders in the industry took a deep breath. Even in the mainland, where the market was huge, a record selling more than 5 million yuan was an extremely amazing result. And Chen Fei's name was known by many people. Chen Fei's boyfriend offered a price of 1 million yuan for a song, and the sales exceeded the charts. With all these factors, it was undoubtedly normal for Madame Jean to bid 600,000 yuan. Many guests present looked around, looking for Lu Chen's figure. They all wanted to see what such an outstanding person looked like. Only Liang Zhihao shrank his head, wishing he could shrink back into his pants. Madame Jin's praise for Lu Qin was like a heavy slap in his face. He had already felt the strange and mocking eyes from those around him. Chapter 433. In modern society, information was developed, and the internet world was boundless. Although Hong Kong's social atmosphere was special, the upper class was arrogant and xenophobic, and the entertainment industry was stagnant. There was always a lack of far-sighted and sensitive people. These real elites of Hong Kong not only cared about Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Macau, but also focused on the mainland, which had a huge market, and even the whole Southeast Asia and the world, firmly grasping the pulse of the times. Mrs. Jean was definitely one of the people who paid the most attention to the mainland entertainment market in Hong Kong. As early as the establishment of her entertainment agency, she began to consciously make arrangements in the mainland in advance, and worked hard to develop the mainland market. She had organized many Hong Kong star groups to perform in the mainland, and she also had considerable connections and resources in the mainland. At that time, Hong Kong's entertainment and film industry was at its peak. Classic works emerged one after another, and big stars were dazzling. Mrs. Jean realized the importance of the mainland market at that time, which was undoubtedly very insightful. She also reaped great rewards for this. Among the hundreds of guests present, Mrs. Jean definitely had the highest status in the entertainment industry. She said that Lu Chen's work was worth millions, and no one dared to doubt it. Even if they didn't believe it, they could only hide it in their hearts. And most people had a new understanding of Lu Chen, the young man from the mainland. Because Lu Chen proved his value. In Hong Kong, value was basically the most basic measure of social class. This meant that the one song that Lu Chen took out as a charity auction item was sold, and he would become one of the top original creators in Hong Kong's pop music industry. 700,000. Su Hui gritted her teeth and raised her paddle again. To be honest, this price had exceeded her expectations, and she was also quite afraid of Mrs. Jean. But Su Hui was not willing to give up like this. She couldn't let others think that she was afraid of Mrs. Jean. Mrs. Jean seemed to have expected it. She smiled lightly and gracefully raised her paddle. 1 million, 1 million. It actually reached 1 million. A song being sold for 1 million was probably something that had never happened in any auction. There were exclamations in the banquet hall. Although for many people present, 1 million was not a big number, and they could easily take out 10 times the amount to use it to make a song. It could only be said that Mrs. Jean was too bold. Su Hui was finally convinced. Not to mention the astonishing price of 1 million yuan, if she continued to compete, it would make people feel that she was very insensible. That's right, Su Hui was the one who took the photo first. However, if she and Madame Jean fought over it in the end, others would only say that she was young and insensible. This was a matter of reputation. 1 million, deal. The auctioneer didn't dare to ask again at this time. He directly hammered the gavel and said, "Congratulations, Madame Jean." Paw paw paw. Warm applause rang out in the hall. No matter what thoughts everyone had, they all congratulated Madame Jean at this time. It could be said that they had watched a good show and had another topic to chat about. Thank you. Madame Jean smiled and stood up to thank her. At the same time, she looked at Lu Chen, who was sitting in the corner. She had obviously noticed Lu Chen's presence a long time ago. Lu Chen said to Li Zhen, "Let's go." Now that his auction item had been sold, he could no longer hide in the corner and be a bystander. You have to give them the real thing. As soon as Lu Chen stood up, he immediately attracted the attention of the audience. There was no need for a special introduction. Everyone knew that he was the real protagonist of the auction just now. Almost everyone's eyes were attracted to him. The guests wanted to see if this mainland singer, who bid $1 million for a song, had 3 heads and 6 arms. In terms of appearance and temperament, Lu Chen would definitely not disappoint. Lu Chen's facial features were sharp and angular. He had sharp eyebrows and bright eyes, which made him look very manly. He was essentially different from the handsome young male idols who were popular in the entertainment circle. He was more in line with the traditional aesthetic tendency. He was handsome enough, but he was not feminine. He was more than 180 meters tall. His figure was perfect after long-term exercise. With the new 2016 Armani suit, it was no problem for him to walk on the runway of the Fashion Week. The most important thing was that after experiencing 3 lives in the dream, Lu Chen's temperament had changed a lot. He was deep and restrained, not arrogant and rash. He had the calm temperament of a successful person, which left a deep impression on those who saw him for the first time. He is Lu Chen. He really looks talented. I'm afraid it's rare even in the mainland. Such a young man is also rare in Hong Kong. So handsome, there were several young girls among the guests. The way they looked at Lu Chen was rich and colorful. Beside Madame Jean, there were 2 young girls. The 2 of them stared at Lu Chen, who was walking over, with slightly shy and curious eyes. "Hello, Madame Jean. I am Lu Chen." Lu Chen bowed slightly and introduced himself first. Then, he introduced Li Zhen. "This is my assistant, Zhen. Can we sit down here?" Li Zhen quickly bowed and saluted. "Hello, Madame Jean." Madame Jean was no longer young. The ruthless years had left indelible traces on her face. No matter how hard she took care of herself, her white hair could still be seen on her temples. However, it could be seen that she must have been an outstanding beauty when she was young. Although time had left its mark, it had also precipitated the unique temperament accumulated by experience, graceful and luxurious. The most noticeable thing was her bright eyes. Her eyes seemed to be able to see through people's hearts. "Sit down. There are still seats here." Madame Jean smiled and asked, "When did you come to Hong Kong?" Lu Chen and Li Zhen sat down on the empty seats. He said, "I just arrived the day before yesterday." Madame Jean smiled and said, "Let me guess. You came to Hong Kong to participate in the new film and television support program." Lu Chen was taken aback. "Yes." "How did you know?" He was very low-key in Hong Kong. He didn't even mention it on his blog. The official establishment of the film and television studio was actually only yesterday. In the local circle, only Xu Jing knew about the situation. This Madame Jean was too resourceful. "Actually, it's easy to guess," Madame Jean explained. "You have achieved such great success in the mainland's pop music and TV series market. If it wasn't for the new film and television support program, I can't think of the reason why you quietly came here." Lu Chen smiled bitterly. "Can't I come here for a vacation?" Madame Jean asked, "Traveling alone in Hong Kong, are you breaking up with Fei? Lu Chen was speechless. Madame Jean showed a sly smile and said, "The most important thing is that I talked to Fei on the phone last night. I knew her earlier than Xu Jing." Lu Chen was completely convinced. Chapter 434. Madame Jean knew Chen Fei for a long time, and she even talked to Chen Fei on the phone yesterday, so it was normal for her to know about Lu Chen's matter. It was obviously a harmless little joke with Lu Chen. However, Lu Chen knew very well that Chen Fei and Madame Jean didn't have much of a friendship, or they hadn't contacted each other for a long time. Otherwise, she would definitely tell him about the existence of such a person. Lu Chen smiled and said, "Thank you so much this time. You didn't embarrass me." Madame Jean shook her head and didn't take credit for it. The girl from the Su family was the first one. I just snatched it from her. That girl isn't to be trifled with. Just remember it. Lu Chen didn't know whether to laugh or cry because Xu Jing had already reminded him of this before. He was already very clear that Su Hui, who claimed to be his fan, wasn't an ordinary artist. She had a very strong background. Lu Chen was puzzled. Do I look like the kind of person who would flirt with other girls? I forgot to introduce you just now. Fortunately, Madame Jean stopped and didn't talk about this issue further. She introduced the two girls beside her to Lu Chen. This is my goddaughter, Ji Xiaodai and Li Xinyan. Xiaodai will debut next month. Her eyes were full of love. It was obvious that she liked her two goddaughters very much. Ji Xiaodai and Li Xinyan were both 17 or 18 years old. The two girls were both beautiful and cute. Ji Xiaodai's face was slightly thin, and her long hair was beautiful. Li Xinyan had short hair and an apple face. When she smiled, there were dimples. Hello, brother Lu Chen. The two girls greeted Lu Chen in unison. Madame Jean immediately corrected them. You should call him Teacher Lu Chen, Teacher Lu. Li Xinyan stuck out her tongue and quickly said, Hello, Teacher Lu. Ji Xiaodai followed. The two were like a pair of sisters. Li Xinyan's personality was obviously more lively, and Ji Xiaodai was introverted and shy. Lu Chen said with a smile, Hello. He asked Madame Jean, This song is for Xiaodai, right? Yeah. Madame Jean nodded. She held Ji Xiaodai's hand and said, Xiaodai's temper is a bit soft. I'm afraid that she will encounter some setbacks, but people have to learn to grow up. Since she has stepped into this circle, she has no choice. I just hope that her first step will be smooth. And Xan Yen. Teacher Lu Chen, please give them more pointers in the future. Just a word from you is enough for them to benefit endlessly. Lu Chen said modestly, You flatter me too much. I'm embarrassed. Madame Jean said seriously, You don't have to be humble. As far as I know, no one in the younger generation can compare to you in terms of Chinese music originals. It's just that some people are frogs at the bottom of a well and don't know. She was undoubtedly mocking Liang Zhihao. Lu Chen smiled and shook his head. Madame Jean didn't intend to let him go. Since we met here, you should give Ji Xiaodai some advice. Madame Jean wasn't being polite. Her understanding of Lu Chen was much deeper than Lu Chen imagined. She was very clear about Lu Chen's achievements in music. Chen Fei's new album, which has achieved the achievement of Crown, is the best proof. Moreover, Lu Chen has also made a number of singers and groups popular, and is famous in the domestic pop music world. It was just that his debut was too short and he had never held a concert in Hong Kong, so most people didn't know him. Madame Jean certainly had to firmly grasp this real potential stock. That was why she was bidding tit for tat with Su Hui, a junior. Ji Xiaodai looked at Lu Chen with expectation. She was obviously nervous about her debut. In fact, many newcomers had such a problem. As a result, they made mistakes or even failed in their debut because they lacked enough confidence. Lu Chen thought for a moment and asked, Is Xiaodai going to debut alone? Madame Jean replied, Yes, I'm going to let her debut first, and then arrange for Xinyan. Lu Chen smiled and said, Then why not let the two debut together and form a female singing duo? Ji Xiaodai was introverted and shy, while Li Xinyan was cheerful and generous. The two seemed to have a good relationship. If they could form a duo, it would solve a lot of problems. Ha! Madame Jean was obviously stunned. She really didn't think of this. On the contrary, Li Xinyan took the initiative to expose herself. Teacher Lu, my voice is ordinary. Godmother is going to let me develop in variety and film. Sister Xiaodia's singing is much better than mine. I can't drag her down. Ji Xiaodai shook her head and didn't speak. But she was obviously quite tempted by Lu Chen's suggestion. With a good sister accompanying her, she would feel much more at ease. Lu Chen said, "This is actually not a problem. The key is that the two of you have a good image. You don't need to have a deep singing foundation or talent. It's completely possible to be a youth idol." Madame Jean only hesitated for a moment before decisively making a decision. Then it's settled. You will debut together as a duo. I will let the company redo all the publicity plans and everything else. She was very bold. Just one sentence from Lu Chen overturned her previous preparations. The price was not low. Madame Jean, who had made up her mind, seemed to have put down a big stone in her heart. She smiled and asked Lu Chen, "You came up with the idea. Then, the name of their duo shouldn't be given to you, right?" Naming a duo was a very serious matter. Madame Jean asking Lu Chen to name the duo was recognition and respect. Lu Chen thought for a moment and said, "Let's call it twins." Twins? Ji Xiaodai asked in surprise, "Is that English for twins?" Lu Chen nodded. "That's right. Do you like it?" Twins, Ji Xiaodai softly said the name. Her eyes flashed with a strange look. She looked at Li Xinyan, and the latter nodded with a smile. Li Xinyan undoubtedly liked it. Madame Jean looked at her two goddaughters and couldn't help but laugh. "This name is really suitable for you." Ji Xiaodai and Li Xinyan originally didn't know each other. The two of them became good friends when they were trainees in Madame Jin's company, and then they were inseparable. Originally, after graduating and debuting, the two of them would develop separately. It was hard to say what would happen in the future. Fate was really strange. Now, because of the appearance of Lu Chen, they could continue this friendship and work together on the road of their career. Maybe this was fate. Madame Jean finally said to Lu Chen, "Then, I will leave the debut of twins to you." Lu Chen smiled and said, "No problem." Madame Jean donated 1 million yuan. In return, he had already thought of the debut of twins. In short, it definitely wouldn't disappoint. "I will send someone to send the score over in 3 days." At this moment, the charity auction was nearing its end. Chapter 435. Under the curtain of night, Xiangjiang was a dazzling and intoxicated world. In this world, there were countless social engagements every day. Well-dressed gentlemen and ladies lingered in all kinds of social occasions, wearing hypocritical masks and saying insincere words, but they enjoyed it. Countless news was created here every day. Just after 8 p.m., Xu Jing's charity dinner at Shangri-La Hotel officially ended. The auction raised more than 10 million yuan, which was mainly used to help poor mothers and children in Hong Kong. There were many rich people in Xiangjiang. Among the rich, there were countless people with assets of more than 100 million yuan. There were also several world-renowned top billionaires, but among the population of more than 13 million, there were still a large number of poor people. Whether it was the upper class or the media controlled by the upper class, they rarely cared about these people at the bottom of society. Countless ordinary people struggled to survive. Compared to those extravagant rich people, they were like ants, unable to withstand even a little storm. In the past few decades, Xiangjiang's economy had developed greatly, but social contradictions were becoming more and more prominent. People with insight realized the biggest problem of Xiangjiang society and had been loudly calling for improving the situation of the poor people. Xu Jing was undoubtedly one of them. She began to pay attention to the poor people in Hong Kong a long time ago. After marrying into a rich family, she established a charity foundation and used her own influence and connections to help those in need. After more than 10 years, although her reputation in the entertainment circle was far less than before, in terms of status and prestige, it was no less than those big stars. So tonight, she successfully completed the fundraising goal. Lu Chen, thank you so much this time. After the dinner, Xu Jing first sent the guests away one by one and asked her assistant to specially invite Lu Chen to stay. How about a cup of coffee together? Lu Chen laughed and said, it's not good to drink coffee at night, right? But since Sister Jing said so, I will accompany you. Xu Jing smiled and said, Xiangjiang's nightlife hasn't even started yet. The coffee shop that Xu Jing invited Lu Chen to was right next to the Shangri-La Hotel. It was said that it was the most famous Lanting coffee in Xiangjiang. If one didn't make a reservation in advance, then they definitely wouldn't be able to get a seat. The seat Xu Jing had booked was very good. It was close to the large floor-to-ceiling window. As long as one turned their head to look, they would be able to see the beautiful night view of Port Victoria. Tasting the fragrant hand-ground coffee, listening to the live piano playing in the cafe, and facing a charming beauty, Lu Chen felt that his trip to Xiangjiang this time was really worthwhile. Of course, he only wanted to admire the beauty and nothing else. Perhaps it was Lu Chen's calm and appreciative attitude that made Xu Jing have a good impression of him. After some careful observation, she finally approved of Lu Chen. Fei has found a good boyfriend. As a sister, I'm really happy for her. Although it was a compliment, it still sounded a little weird. Lu Chen smiled bitterly and said, Sister Jing, you will make me very embarrassed. Xu Jing pursed her lips and smiled, what's there to be embarrassed about? Fei, hers foresight has always been better than mine. Back then, she advised me not to marry into a wealthy family, thinking that women should rely on themselves to win their lives. I almost fell out with her. She stopped smiling and said in a low voice, now that I think about it, what she said couldn't be more right. Lu Chen was silent. Although it was the first time they met, he could see that under Xu Jing's bright and beautiful appearance, there was probably an unknown bitterness. In fact, thinking about it, it could be understood. As a former little empress, she didn't have much popularity after re-entering the entertainment circle. Although she had a place in the upper class by relying on the reputation accumulated by the charity foundation, the face was given by others. All the glory and glory were like castles on the beach. If a strong wind and big waves swept over, then it was very likely to vanish into thin air. To lay a foundation in Xiangjiang and not fall, the most basic thing was one's own strength. Let's not talk about this, Xu Jing reinvigorated herself and smiled again. What were you talking about with Madame Jean for so long? Did you fall for her two goddaughters? You were still reluctant to part with them when you were about to leave. There was a teasing look in her smile, the kind of teasing between friends. Sister Jing, don't slander me, Lu Chen hurriedly surrendered. I just promised to write a debut work for the two of them. 2 songs. Xu Jing was surprised. Is it 1 song? Lu Chen explained, actually, it's 1 song. Because I suggested that the 2 girls should debut as a duo, Madame Jean agreed. It's called Twins. Twins. Xu Jing's eyes suddenly lit up and said, a duo girl group. It seems that there are no famous people in the circle now. This name is very good. Did you give it to them? Lu Chen nodded. Xu Jing sighed and said, these 2 girls are lucky to meet you. I can already predict that Twins' debut will definitely be successful because you wrote songs for them. Lu Chen smiled and shook his head. Sister Jing, you're still slandering me. Not slandering, Xu Jing said very seriously, I heard that you have a nickname called Golden Touch. It is said that your hands have the magic power to turn stone into gold. Any singer who sings the songs written by you will definitely become popular. Lu Chen blushed with shame. I didn't know I had such a nickname. It's too exaggerated. Xu Jing smiled slightly. Whether it's exaggerated or not, I only know after trying it. I'm currently collecting works and preparing to release a new album before the end of the year, so I want to ask you, the Golden Touch, to help me write 2 songs. How about it? Lu Chen replied without hesitation, no problem. His straightforwardness made Xu Jing stunned. Don't you want to ask about the conditions? What if I want you to do it for free? There was a playful expression on her face. Lu Chen said freely, you are Fei Er's friend, so you are my friend. There is no need to talk about so many conditions between friends. It's not a problem for you to do it for free. What Lu Chen said was not polite words and empty words. He started his own film career in Xiangjiang and needed support from all sides. For a person like Xu Jing, who was influential in the circle, what did it matter if he gave her 2 songs? What's more, she was friends with Fei Er and helped him get to know many high-level figures in the circle. However, Xu Jing was inexplicably moved. After experiencing the ups and downs of prosperity, she was not the kind of person who would be easily moved. However, Lu Chen's honesty and generosity made her see a different man. How lucky Chen Fei Er was. Chapter 436. Then I'll leave the title song of my new album to you. Xu Jing stood in front of a white Maserati with a small bag and said to Lu Chen with a smile, after going back, I'll tell Fei more good things about you. Even if you do something bad in Xiangjiang, I'll pretend that I didn't see it. Lu Chen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Thank you so much, Sister Jing. She was already in her 30s, but her jokes were not much different from those of young people. But this just showed her appreciation and affection for Lu Chen. This was the premise of being a real friend. Goodbye. Xu Jing smiled and waved like a familiar friend, then turned around and opened the door and got in. Lu Chen watched Xu Jing's car go away and disappeared in the rolling traffic on the long street. He said to Li Zhen, let's go. Li Zhen hesitated and asked, Boss, it's still early. Do you want me to take you to the night market in Xiangjiang? Temple Street in Zhilongyao is very lively at night. People in Xiangjiang were very fond of nightlife, especially young people. Except for a few otakus, most people would play very late. In addition, tens of millions of tourists poured into Xiangjiang every year, creating the prosperity of the night market in Xiangjiang. Lu Chen had long been famous for the night market in Xiangjiang. He was quite tempted, but after thinking about it, he gave up. It was boring to go to the night market alone. Even if Li Zhen accompanied him, she was just an assistant after all. Li Zhen didn't give up. She thought that Lu Chen was afraid of the noise and crowding, and said, if you don't like the night market, then go to Lan Kwai Fong. The bar in Lan Kwai Fong is very unique, and there are many foreigners. Compared with Temple Street in Zhilongyao, Lu Chen undoubtedly knew more about the bar in Lan Kwai Fong. Although it was the first time he came to Xiangjiang, he had long heard of the famous bar in Lan Kwai Fong. When Lu Chen was mingling in Forget Grass Bar, he once knew a singer from Xiangjiang, who sang in Lan Kwai Fong and told him a lot about it. At that time, Lu Chen really yearned for it. Li Zhen's suggestion inevitably evoked his memories and feelings. Then let's go to Orchid Kwai Lane. Finally getting what she wanted, the little assistant was overjoyed. Okay. Lan Kwai Fong was an L-shaped uphill path located in the Central District. Its name was taken from the meaning of Lan Kwai Fong. It was a high-end consumer area that gathered bars and restaurants of all sizes. Therefore, it was very popular with the middle class, foreigners and tourists. It was one of the special tourist attractions of Xiangjiang. It was only a 5-minute drive from the Shangri-La Hotel to Lan Kwai Fong. After getting off the car, Lu Chen and Li Zhen walked into the famous street. Walking into Lan Kwai Fong, the atmosphere was immediately different from the Central District. This path paved with stone eggs was filled with a European-style atmosphere. There were bars and restaurants on both sides of the road. The unique street lights and the light emitted by various signboards set off a different atmosphere. Most of the bars here were open from noon to 2 a.m. or even later. There were also English and Australian bars and even Japanese karaoke lounges that served snacks all day. Therefore, whenever the night fell, many young and fashionable people of Hong Kong liked to come here to have a good time, making Lan Kwai Fong full of vitality that belonged to young people. Li Zhen was a frequent visitor of Lan Kwai Fong, so she was clear and logical when she talked about it. It's still okay now. During holidays such as Halloween, Christmas, and New Year's Eve, Lan Kwai Fong will hold street carnival activities. This is definitely one of the most lively places in Xiangjiang. There are a lot of foreign tourists. Along the way, Lu Chen saw a lot of foreigners. They were standing at the entrance of the bar or on the roadside in groups of 2 or 3 holding a glass of wine. They were whispering and chatting or admiring the people and scenery along the street. Li Zhen suggested, "Boss, let's go to La Dolce Vita 97 bar. There are free performances every night. Saxophone, guitar, singing, and dance. I've been there with my friends many times." La Dolce Vita. Lu Chen thought it was a good idea. Then let's go to this bar. La Dolce Vita 97 bar was not fundamentally different from the other bars in Lan Kwai Fong. It was an English bar with a rather fashionable style. The decoration was unique but not luxurious, and the furnishings were relatively simple. Inside, the space was not particularly big. Wooden tables, high stools, or high-back chairs were standard equipment. The wine cabinet behind the bar was filled with all kinds of beer and other alcohol as well as wine glasses. 2 white-skinned and blue-eyed bartenders were mixing drinks for the guests. Most of the seats were occupied. On the small rotating stage on the right side of the bar, a jazz band was playing. Their skills were quite exquisite. Just by listening to this song, Lu Chen felt that this trip was not in vain. The bartenders were foreigners, and so were the members of the jazz band. However, the waitresses were obviously locals. Li Zhen greeted one of them and asked her to help find an empty seat. "Ah, Zhen." Unexpectedly, before they could find an empty seat, someone stood up and called Li Zhen's name. "How did you know we were here?" The other party was undoubtedly Li Zhen's friend. There were many people there. 4 men and 3 women shared 2 tables. One of the short-haired girls was very surprised and rushed over to hug Li Zhen. Li Zhen had an embarrassed look on her face. She didn't expect all her friends to be here tonight. The short-haired girl did not ignore Lu Chen, who was walking with Li Zhen. In fact, when she hugged Li Zhen, her eyes kept glancing at Lu Chen's body with a strong sense of playfulness. "Ah, Zhen, you are too unkind. You actually found a handsome boyfriend without saying a word." The short-haired girl was full of jealousy and teased, "You even secretly ran out for a date. Are you afraid that we will rob you?" Li Zhen did not know whether to laugh or cry. "Shua and I, this is not my boyfriend." The short-haired girl named Shua and I did not listen to Li Zhen's explanation. She took the initiative to reach out to Lu Chen and said, "Hello, handsome. My name is Shua and I am Ah Zhen's good friend." Lu Chen smiled faintly and shook hands with her. "Hello, my name is Lu Chen. I am Ah Zhen's friend." Shua and I gave Li Zhen a look that said, "Don't you dare to deny it." She pulled the latter back to her seat and shouted, "Attention, everyone. Let's welcome our Ah Zhen and her handsome friend Lu Chen." Several of her peers immediately laughed, applauded, and jeered, which made Li Zhen feel very embarrassed. She did not know how to tell these friends that Lu Chen was her boss. Lu Chen did not mind. He sat down big, nodded and said, "Hello." From beginning to end, Lu Chen spoke fluent Cantonese, so these young people thought that he was a local, but they were quite curious about his identity. Soon, someone could not help but ask, "How did you meet Ah Zhen?" Chapter 437. How did you get to know Jin? The person who questioned Lu Qin was a young man in his mid-20s. His appearance was passable, a little handsome, and he knew how to dress up. He belonged to the type that young girls liked. But he obviously liked Li Jin, so when he saw Lu Qin with Li Jin, he couldn't help feeling jealous. His eyes and words were full of provocation. Li Jin frowned and asked discontentedly, "Qin Jiming, what does this have to do with you?" She was more uneasy, worried that her friend would offend Lu Qin. She didn't want to lose her current job. Originally, Li Jin had a good impression of Qin Jiming. Although she didn't agree to his pursuit, she acquiesced to his pursuit. Now it seemed that she needed to reconsider. Because the nature of her job required her to stay with the boss for a long time. If she had a jealous boyfriend, her life would be very painful. Li Jin had seen a real-life example with her own eyes. She didn't want to repeat the same mistake. "It doesn't matter," Lu Qin smiled and waved his hand. He said to Qin Jiming, "I just came to Xiangjiang 2 days ago. Jin works with me. Because I'm not familiar with Xiangjiang, she took me to Lan Kuai Lane to broaden my horizons." He looked around and said, "This place is really good. So you are Jin's new colleague?" Shui and I suddenly realized and asked curiously, "Where are you from? Do you have a girlfriend now?" The gossiping spirit of her best friend made Li Jin want to cover her face. She was so embarrassed. Lu Qin didn't care and replied patiently, "I'm from the capital. I already have a girlfriend, and I love my girlfriend very much." He winked at Shui and I, but everyone knew that he was talking to Qin Jiming. Qin Jiming had an embarrassed look on his face. But Shui and I obviously didn't give up. She said without thinking, "Then your girlfriend didn't come with you, right? How about I be your girlfriend in Xiangjiang? If I'm satisfied with your performance, it's not impossible for me to marry you in the future." Haha. Her friends all laughed and jeered. Shui and I, "Good job." Lu Qin was speechless. Li Jin wished she could find a hole to hide in. Lu Qin didn't expect that this pretty girl would be so bold and direct. They had just met and she wanted to be his girlfriend. He recalled that Xiangjiang's marriage system was different from the mainland. The 3 special regions all allowed one to marry more than one wife. It was said that many rich people in the mainland tried their best to move to Hong Kong, Taiwan, or Macau. In addition to the living environment and conditions, many of them were aiming at this system. On the other hand, because a large number of wealthy people had migrated, the market had flourished and brought in huge amounts of investment. Therefore, although the women's rights organizations in the 3 special regions had been strongly requesting to amend the unfair marriage law for many years, there had always been a lot of resistance. It was a pity that Lu Qin only had Qin Feier. "I'm afraid that won't work, because my girlfriend is very powerful, and she's much richer than me. She definitely won't sign the consent form." Lu Qin joked, "That's why it's a pity." Although the 3 special regions allowed more than one wife, if one wanted to marry the second wife or the third wife, one must first get the support of the first wife and get the latter's signed consent form. Shui and I suddenly stopped talking and looked at Lu Qin with disdain. "I didn't expect you to be such a handsome guy." This made the atmosphere a little awkward, but Qin Jiming was relieved. He felt that Lu Qin was pleasing to the eye. Because he knew that Li Jin would definitely not like this kind of boy. Seeing this situation, Li Jin's other friend quickly smoothed things over and asked, "Lu Qin, you speak Cantonese so well, are you from Guangdong?" Lu Qin shook his head with a smile and said, "No, I'm from Zhejiang. I learned Cantonese from my university classmates." The other party praised, "Then you're so amazing, you're learning so well. If I didn't know, I would think that you're a native of Xiangjiang and not from the mainland." Although it was a compliment, it inadvertently revealed a sense of regional superiority. To this, Lu Qin just laughed it off. Although he had only been in Xiangjiang for a short time, he could feel that the social atmosphere here was really very different from that of the mainland. Openness and conservatism coexisted, and the fusion of different civilizations produced a special culture, as well as the people of Xinjiang. Putting aside the sense of regional superiority in their bones, these young people of Xinjiang were still very easy to deal with. It was probably because Lu Qin could speak Cantonese fluently, plus he was tall and handsome, so Li Zhen's friends quickly accepted Lu Qin. Even Xua and I, who was a little depressed, regained her happiness and talked and laughed with Li Zhen again. Lu Qin ordered a beer and drank it slowly. He listened more than he spoke, and his conversation was not bad. Therefore, despite the suspicion of living off a woman, Li Zhen's friends had a good impression of him. Inadvertently, it was already 10:30 at night. At this time, a middle-aged man walked onto the stage and said into the microphone, "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I believe those who are familiar with La Dolce Vita 97 know that our bar will be holding another LDV singing competition tonight. The winner will not only be rewarded with a free meal for the whole table, but will also be given 2 bottles of high-end red wine. Let's start signing up now, and the competition will begin soon." As soon as his voice fell, there was immediately a warm applause, whistles, and cheers. For a moment, the atmosphere in the bar was pushed to a climax. Li Zhen knew that Lu Qin did not understand, so she deliberately explained it to him. It turned out that the La Dolce Vita 97 bar held a singing competition every week. Any customer could go on stage and perform their singing talent, and then the audience would judge the best. Each table could only send one representative. If they won, then all the food that had been ordered would be free of charge. Although it was not a very generous reward, it was fun. Many customers came specially for this. Those who were confident of winning the final victory would often order a lot of things in advance. If they won, they would make a lot of money. To put it bluntly, this was just a clever way for the bar to attract customers. Lu Qin asked curiously, "How will the audience judge?" Li Zhen reached out and picked up a rose inserted in a vase on the wine table. She said, "This is the ballot. After listening, let the waiter give it to the chosen contestant. Whoever has the most roses will be the winner." "So that's how it is," Lu Qin praised, "very interesting." The bar owner had really racked his brains. It was no wonder that the bar was full. Li Zhen lowered her voice and asked, "Boss, you will definitely win if you go on stage." Chapter 438. Boss, you will definitely win if you go on stage. Although Li Zhen's words were very light, she was absolutely confident. Who is Lu Qin? He is the well-deserved #1 among the new generation of singers in the mainland. His debut time is very short, but his speed of becoming famous is very fast. The success of his 2 albums have proved his strength. Lu Qin also won the championship of the influential Singing China reality show. The more she knew about Lu Qin, the more Li Zhen felt incredible. Hong Kong's pop music began in the early 1970s, and has been up and down for decades. There was an incomparably glorious era, with a large number of outstanding singers and musicians emerging, and a huge impact on the mainland. But in Li Zhen's impression, a young singer like Lu Qin, who has style, talent, and strength, there are really few people in the pop music world of Xinjiang who can be compared with him. It should be known that Lu Qin is a top singer who combines singing and creation. If he goes on stage, won't he easily crush everyone in La Dolce Vita 97? That's bound to win. Before joining Lu Qin's studio, Li Zhen, like the vast majority of Hong Kong people, knew nothing about her new boss. Now that she knows and is familiar with him, she is more and more looking forward to hearing Lu Qin's live singing. Therefore, Li Zhen instigated Lu Qin as a small wish of the latter's fans. Lu Qin shook his head with a smile. He is confident that he can win if he goes on stage, but that would be bullying. What are you talking about? At this time, Chen Zhiming was in a bad mood again. He saw Li Zhen and Lu Chen whispering, as if they were very intimate, and the jealousy in his heart rose again. Although he knew that his question would make Li Zhen feel disgusted, he couldn't bear to pretend not to see it. "It's none of your business." Li Zhen couldn't help rolling her eyes. Lu Chen said with a faint smile, "We're talking about who should go on stage later." "Of course, it's Zhiming." Sitting next to Chen Zhiming's friend immediately said, "Zhiming sings very well. He's best at Lu Tianwang's songs, and he has won an award in a singing competition before." Chen Zhiming revealed a proud expression and did not show any signs of modesty. Singing was really one of Chen Zhiming's best skills. His favorite and idol was Hong Kong superstar Lu Gangsheng, so he had painstakingly imitated Lu Tianwang's works. In the KTV set organized by his colleagues and friends, his singing often won applause. Chen Zhiming was prepared to go on stage himself, but when he saw the calm smile on Lu Chen's face, he felt uncomfortable in his heart, so he said, "I think it's better to let Lu Chen go. It's his first time here, so of course he has to have fun. How can he not go on stage and sing? Am I right?" His friends looked at each other. Everyone had known each other for a long time and were very familiar with each other. Everyone could naturally see what Chen Zhiming was planning. It was nothing more than to let Lu Chen go up on stage and embarrass himself. In turn, it would serve as a foil to win Li Zhen's favor. It had to be said that this method was not very clever. This was not the way to chase a girl, and Lu Chen obviously did not have the idea of chasing Li Zhen. Chen Zhiming was undoubtedly blinded by jealousy. But because everyone was friends, no one could criticize Chen Zhiming. The person next to Chen Zhiming clapped and said, "Yes, yes, yes, this idea is good, I support it." The others could not help but look at Li Zhen. She was the one who brought Lu Chen. Li Zhen's expression was very strange, as if she wanted to laugh, but also seemed to not know whether to laugh or cry. In short, it was very strange. What did this mean? Everyone did not understand. Lu Chen coughed and said, "Let Brother Zhiming go and try to get a free bill. Everyone will be happy." I knew it would be like this. Chen Zhiming's face showed a proud expression again. It would be best if Lu Chen was willing to go on stage, but it did not matter if he was not willing. Of course, he would not force him in front of Li Zhen and ruin his own image. It was enough for Lu Chen to admit that he could not do it. It was better to let the real masters do it. "Yi Xian, it's Yi Xian." What Chen Zhiming did not expect was that just as he was about to speak, a shout of surprise suddenly burst out from not far away, causing an uproar. Everyone's attention was attracted, and they quickly figured out what was going on. It turned out that the person sitting at the table was Yi Xian, a rather famous singer in Xiangjiang. He came to La Dolce Vita 97 with his friends for a small gathering, and then was recognized by the hostess who sent him the number plate. Lan Kwai Fong Bar was very famous, and it was very common for star artists to appear here. Coincidentally, there was a female fan of Yi Xian who shouted on the spot. In the end, there were several Yi Xian fans in the bar, and they strongly requested Yi Xian to go on stage. Yi Xian found it difficult to refuse, so he agreed and took the number plate, causing several fans to cheer. Then what was the point of playing? The people at Lu Chen's table were all discouraged, and Chen Zhiming no longer had any desire to be in the limelight. Although he was confident in his singing ability, against a famous singer like Yi Xian, he could only be crushed. There was no chance of victory. Chen Zhiming wanted to amaze everyone on stage, but he didn't want to become Yi Xian's foil. In his disappointment, he suddenly had an idea and said to Lu Chen, "Lu Chen, your luck today is really good. It's a rare opportunity to be able to compete with Yi Xian on the same stage. Don't miss it." Chen Zhiming didn't plan to go up, so why not let Lu Chen go up? This person, Lu Chen sighed inwardly. This Chen Zhiming was a typical smart person with no real wisdom. In fact, it was just something for everyone to have fun. There was no need to think so much about it. Why bother? What was funny was that his little scheme was seen by everyone, and he was complacent without knowing it. Lu Chen didn't think that Chen Zhiming would have a chance to chase after Li Zhen. Li Zhen was a very smart girl. At this time, the hostess came over. Lu Chen took the number plate from her as proof of going on stage. He said with a smile, "Then I'll make a fool of myself. When the time comes, everyone will support me." Chen Zhiming chuckled, Of course, of course." He just threw out the hot potato and couldn't wait for Lu Chen to PK with Yi Xian. He would definitely be tortured badly. Although Yi Xian wasn't a first-rate singer in Xiangjiang, he was still very strong in singing. He had released a few albums that sold well, so it wouldn't be a problem for him to be ranked second. It was too easy to crush an amateur like Lu Chen. While they were talking, La Dolce Vita 97's LDV Singing King Award officially began. The first person to go on stage was a young girl. She sang a classic old song, Love Gone Away. She sang it very well and drew warm applause. Lu Chen's number plate was number 13. Chapter 439. For the people living in Xiangjiang, the truly exciting part of their nightlife had yet to arrive. The atmosphere in La Dolce Vita 97 was just right. The LDV Singing Kings Award was extremely famous, but it was actually just a program for the bar to entertain itself. The key was to invite customers to participate in it, and anyone could go on stage and show off their singing skills. However, the situation tonight was different. The appearance of the singer Yi Xian caused the competition to lose its suspense. However, the other contestants also sang exceptionally relaxed, losing a lot of competition and gaining a lot of joy. The amateur singers who went on stage according to the number plates were of varying levels. Some of them attracted bursts of warm applause, while others attracted bursts of boos. He didn't mind being booed and finished singing with a smile. Only then would he be able to receive the small gift that the bar gave to all the contestants, 2 stacks of German black beer. Coincidentally, Yi Xian was ranked 12th, just in front of Lu Chen. A star is a star. The moment Yi Xian appeared on stage, the entire bar was in an uproar. Applause, cheers, and whistles rose and fell one after another. There were even female fans shouting his name. It was as if this was his solo concert's home ground, instantly crushing all the contestants in front of him. Yi Xian was around 30 years old. He wasn't the kind of handsome guy who met the public standards, but his skin was fair and gentle. His weak temperament should be able to attract the affection of young women. After going on stage, Yi Xian held the microphone and said, "I'm very happy tonight. I was able to meet so many friends here, and everyone likes music. La Dolce Vita 97 is also very good. Originally, I didn't plan to go on stage, but since everyone insisted, I can only make a fool of myself. I drank a lot of wine today, so I'm not in a very good state. Please don't take offense to my poor singing." Everyone laughed and clapped, giving him encouragement and support. Yi Xian seemed to have obtained strength from the applause, and his mental state instantly rose. His entire person immediately became very different, as if he was filled with vitality and the desire to sing loudly. "Then I'll play this song for everyone. It's my favorite song, Breaking Dawn." The applause instantly became several times more enthusiastic. Lu Chen was also applauding. He nodded to himself, thinking that his colleague was definitely experienced in controlling the scene. There were many kinds of singers. Some singers were only good at performing in the recording studio, while some singers performed better in big occasions. Their ability to control the scene was often very strong. A brilliant singer could easily stir up the atmosphere of the scene and firmly grasp the emotions of the audience. It was very easy to complete a successful performance. The scene in front of him was very small, but Yi Xian had only used a few words and the aura he brewed to completely turn La Dolce Vita 97 into his home ground. It was obvious that he was well aware of the profoundness within. You really can't judge a book by its cover. Yi Xian's singing ability was also very strong. This Breaking Dawn wasn't his own work, but the famous work of Xiangjiang's heavenly king Lu Gangxing. It could be said to be a household name in Xiangjiang. There were many singers in Hong Kong who had covered this song. Because everyone was too familiar with it, the standard of evaluation was very high. If one wanted to cover Breaking Dawn without enough strength, he would definitely be asking for humiliation. Breaking Dawn wasn't a fast song or a slobbering song. It had a high requirement for singing skills. Under the accompaniment of the bar band, Yi Xian held the microphone and sang very engrossed. His voice was slightly sharp and resounding, and he was able to control the high notes of the song with ease. When it came to the climax of the chorus, it was quite shocking. If there was a flaw, it would be that the depth of the middle and low voice was not deep enough, causing this classic work to sound a little lacking in thickness and not thought-provoking. After Yi Xian finished singing Breaking Dawn, the entire bar was in an uproar. Another song. Someone shouted loudly. His words were immediately echoed by countless people. After singing the difficult Breaking Dawn, Yi Xian's forehead was already covered in sweat. He smiled and waved his hand, saying, "Thank you everyone. Tonight, everyone is happy. I can't break the rules of the competition, so I can only apologize." He inserted the microphone back into the rack, then returned to his seat. Yi Xian's friend smiled and said, "I knew it was right to pull you over. This time, I saved at least a few thousand yuan." There were 5 or 6 friends sitting with Yi Xian. They couldn't help but laugh when they heard this. A girl pursed her lips and laughed, "I should have called for a few more bottles of red wine just now." Actually, none of them were lacking in money, but it was always very happy to be able to take advantage of them. Moreover, they had a lot of face to take advantage of. Yi Xian modestly said, "Don't be happy too early. There are still a few more to go on stage." Tisk. His friend disdainfully said, "Unless Heavenly King Lu personally comes, tonight's champion will definitely be you, Brother Xian." This flattery was a bit too much. Yi Xian could only bitterly smile. He couldn't possibly retort and slap his friend in the face, right? "I wonder how many more there are." The girl looked around and suddenly revealed a surprised expression. Number 13 is a handsome guy." The word handsome was quite attractive. Everyone couldn't help but turn their heads to look at the stage. What a handsome guy. At this moment, the person on stage was the handsome number 13, Lu Qin. Good luck. Li Jun clapped her hands with all her might to cheer for her boss. The influence of the beauty wasn't weak either. Many guests gave face and applauded to express their encouragement. Actually, everyone looked at Lu Qin with a bit of sympathy. Because Yi Xian's previous performance was so brilliant, the pressure on him was extremely great. Fortunately, Lu Qin was tall and handsome enough to at least pull back some impressions, especially for the female guests. Good luck, handsome guy. A crisp voice came from the crowd, causing a burst of laughter. Lu Qin smiled faintly and asked the guitarist of the band, "Do you have a spare guitar?" For most guitarists, their instruments were second lives or wives and lovers. Normally, they wouldn't lend them to others to use, which was why Lu Qin asked to borrow a spare one. The guitarist was surprised. "You want to play and sing by yourself?" Lu Qin nodded. The guitarist was very straightforward. He directly handed the guitar he was holding to Lu Qin, "Then use mine. The tone is accurate." Lu Qin took it. "Thank you." He asked for another stool, adjusted the height of the microphone, and sat down. La Dolce Vita 97 bar became very quiet. Even the bartender put down the wine jug in his hand. They all wanted to see what kind of performance this handsome guy would bring to everyone. Playing and singing. It seemed like he had some standards. Chapter 440. Singers who could play and sing by themselves would always be looked up to by people, because such singers were often not too bad, and many of them had personalities and characteristics, often inadvertently surprising people. As for amateur singers who dared to play and sing by themselves on stage for people to appreciate and evaluate, they were either not strong enough but overconfident, or they really had some level of skill. Lu Chen looked like the kind of person who had a level of skill. He was calm and confident enough. In other words, it was a typhoon. He was very good and did not have stage fright. Such people usually had 70 to 80% of their strength and could often play out 100%. So although there was no suspense about the result, everyone still had some expectations for him and listened very carefully. Lu Chen held the guitar and coughed, then said to the microphone, "It's my first time in Xiangjiang, and also my first time in Lan Kuai Fong and La Dolce Vita 97. Everything here has surprised me. It's a pity that I didn't bring my girlfriend with me this time. I believe she will also like it here." Everyone gave him face and applauded for Lu Chen's praise for La Dolce Vita 97. No one thought that Lu Chen was not from Xiangjiang, and it was his first time in Lan Kuai Fong. That was interesting. Lu Chen continued, "Then I saw that there were a lot of couples in the bar, so I sang a love song. May all the lovers in the world be together, and lonely people can also find their other half." The applause became louder. Lu Chen smiled and said, "The name of this song is called The Love of a Lifetime, and it's for all the lovers." He gently plucked the strings and began his own singing. On this strange and familiar stage. If you wait foolishly, one day you can finally wait, the love of a lifetime. Who cares that our love often encounters accidents and is not clear about the future? Who would like, the love of my heart, watching the sea alone every day? I would rather not speak for a lifetime, don't want to lie to you. Pay attention to our love, you will find a little distance between us. Love without words, I don't dare to say I want to be with you, Wu, the love of my life, was a Cantonese song, and it was Lu Chen's first Cantonese work. It seemed a bit childish to sing it for the first time here, but as the saying goes, words are the voice of the heart, and songs are to express one's aspiration. Singing when you want to sing, not for profit or fame, is the true nature of a real singer. The Love of My Life was a gentle and affectionate song. What it sang was the singer's desire for love. It was the persistence and expectation of love. It was a love song that could undoubtedly become a classic. Lu Chen's interpretation of the song was deep and restrained. Every word and sentence contained his inner feelings, which gave his singing a unique charm. It made people involuntarily listen carefully and then sink into it without any resistance and be deeply affected. La Dolce Vita 97 suddenly became very quiet. People listened to this song that they had never heard before. Every word, every sentence, every sigh, it was as if they were under a spell. No one said a word. Even the waitresses hid in the corner. All eyes were on Lu Chen. Li Zhen bit her lip, not letting the excitement in her heart show. She knew that Lu Chen was very good, but the feeling brought by listening to Lu Chen's playing and singing on the spot was not something that could be described and carried by a few pages of text. Chen Zheming looked like he had seen a ghost. He had already tried his best to overestimate Lu Chen's level, especially after Lu Chen borrowed the guitar. However, the truth was often more cruel than imagined. Not only was Lu Chen not crushed by Yi Xian, but he also had the momentum to crush the other party. How could Chen Zheming endure this? His little scheme just now was so laughable. Chen Zheming's face was burning. Among the people present, perhaps he was the only one who was still absent-minded. Fortunately, no one paid attention to him. The people at Yi Xian's table were basically stunned. They originally thought that they would win for sure. Yi Xian would crush the entire audience without any suspense. They never thought that a handsome guy who could play and sing would suddenly appear, and he could even sing so well. Those who knew the ropes could naturally tell that Lu Chen's guitar skills were very high. His voice had a special quality, and his singing skills were even more extraordinary. Whether it was the change in aura or the handling of details, he was very familiar with them. The most rare thing was that the emotions contained in the song were sincere and warm, very touching. Such a level of strength was probably something that most professional singers could not compare to. Could it be that the pop music in the mainland had developed to such a terrifying level that any one of them could make their opponents feel ashamed? One of them felt that Lu Chen looked a little familiar, as if he had seen him somewhere before. Yi Xian's expression became very serious. He stared at Lu Chen, who was sitting on the stage, and fell into deep thought. If it was real, if it was fake, if you could play the role of yourself, you would give the gentleness in your heart to your only confidant. Like a fool, like a drunkard, I hope you know how to cherish yourself. One day, even if we are separated, I miss you, I really miss you. If I wait foolishly, one day I will finally be able to wait. The love of my life. The climax of the song was undoubtedly the most exciting. The first part of the song was a gentle whisper, and when it came to the chorus, the emotions were immediately raised. The sound went straight to the heartstrings, giving people a strong sense of impact. If a person waited foolishly, would there be a day when we would be able to wait for the person we love the most in our lives? And when we meet the only one in our lives, when we face difficulties, even though we clearly don't know the future, will we still be able to hold each other's hands until our hair turns white? This song was sung to people with the deepest true feelings. When Lu Chen finished playing the last note, applause erupted in the bar a moment later. Clapping, shouting, whistling. Young people were always direct when they expressed their love. There were also a few girls who picked up the roses in the vase on the table and rushed up to the stage to give them to Lu Chen. This meant that they had decided on Lu Chen. A flower was a vote. Among all the contestants who went on stage before, only Yi Xian had such treatment, and he was a singer. Shui and I opened her mouth in disbelief and muttered, "Is this for real? Zhen, isn't your colleague too amazing? Why doesn't he become an artist? He will definitely be famous all over the world." This Xiangjiang girl suddenly felt that even if Lu Chen was living off a woman, he was still relying on his strength to do so. Li Zhen hesitated for a moment, but still took the initiative to reveal the truth. "Actually, Lu Chen is not my colleague, but my new boss. He is the most famous young singer in the mainland, and he has also starred in 2 TV series with extremely high ratings. He is also an A-list celebrity in the mainland, and he writes a song for someone else for 1,000,000 yuan. Ah! Shui and I, Chen Jiming, and the others were all dumbfounded. Note, the love of your life of lyrics, Xiang Xiaohui/composer, Wu Sikai. Chapter 441. Li Zhen's new boss, the most famous young singer in the mainland, the star of 2 highly rated TV series, the A-list star whose works cost millions of dollars. Li Zhen's friends felt like they were listening to a fairy tale. They were all stunned. It was a very unreal feeling. When they first met Lu Chen, they first felt that he was very handsome, a real handsome guy from the mainland. Then, he talked well, was kind and easygoing, like a big boy next door, which was very likable. Shui and I was immediately moved and boldly confessed to him. But to everyone's surprise, not only did Lu Chen have a girlfriend, but it seemed that he was relying on her. This made Li Zhen's friends' evaluation of Lu Chen a lot lower. Now Lu Chen was playing and singing on the acting stage, but Li Zhen told everyone that he was a big star, which was hard for them to accept for a while. Li Zhen was also helpless, because even if she deliberately hid it, she wouldn't hide it for too long. When the truth was exposed, it would be very embarrassing in front of her friends. It's true, I'm not lying to you. Faced with her friend's bewilderment, Li Zhen had to explain, you can go to the internet and you will know. My boss's girlfriend is Qin Fei, You should know Qin Fei, right? And he and Qin Fei, starred in the TV series Autumn in My Life and Death and full of romance. I suggest you watch them. Speaking of this, Li Zhen's pretty face was a little red. Because not long ago, like these friends, she only cared about the news in the Hong Kong entertainment industry, only watched the TV series and variety shows produced by Hong Kong TV stations, and only played on the local BBS. This was actually a common problem in Hong Kong. Most people lacked understanding of the situation in the mainland, and they would not take the initiative to care about it. Li Zhen felt that at that time, she and her friends were all frogs at the bottom of a well, staying in the small world of Hong Kong and ignoring the real wonderful world outside. His girlfriend is Qin Fei, Shui and I covered her face and said coquettishly, "Ah Zhen, you're so bad. Why didn't you tell me earlier? You made me lose face." The people of Xiangjiang didn't know many mainland stars, but Qin Fei was one of them. She once came to Xiangjiang's Hung Hom Stadium to hold a concert, and also released her own album in Xiangjiang, so she had a certain degree of fame. No matter how confident Shui and I was, she didn't dare to say that she could get a share of the loot from Qin Fei. Li Zhen smiled bitterly and said, "Who asked you to be so horny so quickly? Didn't I tell you now?" Shui and I hugged her. "No, you have to compensate me." The two women laughed, and Lu Qin, who was on the stage, returned the guitar to the guitarist of the bar band. The latter's face was filled with admiration. Once he received it, he gave Lu Qin a thumbs up. "How sharp." Lu Qin smiled and said, "Thank you for the guitar." Right at this moment, Yi Xian strode onto the stage and arrived in front of Lu Qin. "Hello." Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, he took the initiative to extend his hand towards Lu Qin. "I'm Yi Xian." "Hello." Lu Qin shook hands with him. "My name is Lu Qin." Yi Xian impatiently asked, "I would like to ask, who wrote this song of yours? Who is the original singer?" As a local singer of Xiangjiang, although Yi Xian's position in the pop music world wasn't very high, he graduated from the Nine Dragons Music Academy. Putting aside his singing ability, his eyesight and experience were both top-notch. Yi Xian had never heard of the song that Lu Qin had just sung, "The Love of My Life." This made him extremely curious. One had to know that as long as such an outstanding Cantonese song was released, he would definitely have heard of it. Moreover, this song shouldn't have been a nameless song. It was precisely this intense curiosity in pursuit of the truth that caused Yi Xian to rush back onto the stage to ask for the answer in front of everyone. He couldn't wait to know the original author. As a singer, his keen sense of smell made Yi Xian realize that this might be an opportunity for him. If he could buy this song, Yi Xian stared fixedly at Lu Qin, waiting for the answer he was looking for. Faced with Yi Xian's barrage of questions, Lu Qin was a little surprised. He said, "Let's go down and talk." Only then did Yi Xian realize that his actions were inappropriate. He couldn't help but blush as he hurriedly said, "All right." The two of them walked off the stage together. Most of the guests in the bar didn't know what was going on. When they saw Yi Xian shake hands with Lu Qin and exchange pleasantries, they thought that this singer appreciated Lu Qin and specially went up on stage to encourage the latter. Thus, everyone applauded. Yi Xian directly invited Lu Qin over to his side to sit down. Lu Qin didn't refuse. After greeting Li Zhen, he calmly sat beside Yi Xian. Yi Xian's friend sized up Lu Qin with curious gazes. One of the girls looked especially serious and careful. Before Yi Xian could introduce her, she suddenly asked, have you filmed a TV series before? Lu Chen smiled and nodded, yes. The girl's eyes immediately lit up and she asked, is it Blue Love? Are you called Lu Chen? Lu Chen couldn't help but rub his nose and say, it's me. Ah! The girl immediately let out a scream, and her eyes were filled with stars. It really is you, it really is you. Yin Juanxi. I'm a fan of yours. She was so excited that her face was flushed red. It was the kind of excitement that a brainless fan would have when she saw her idol. If it wasn't for the fact that the occasion wasn't suitable, she would probably have directly pounced on Lu Chen and hugged him. Yi Xian and his other friends looked at each other in dismay. Yi Xian couldn't help but ask, Ah Fong, you said he's an actor. The girl nodded her head vigorously and stared at Lu Chen. Yes, when did you come to Xiangjiang? Lu Chen smiled and said, I just came a few days ago. Yi Xian had no choice but to interrupt their conversation. He realized that the development of the situation seemed to have gotten out of his control. Lu Chen, that song just now, Lu Chen replied, I wrote that song myself, and it's the first time I've sung it in public. He understood Yi Xian's thoughts. But Lu Chen wouldn't sell this song to anyone else. Yi Xian was stunned. When Ah Fong said that Lu Chen was an actor, Yi Xian didn't care too much. But now that he heard Lu Chen say that the song, The Love of My Life, came from him, Yi Xian was truly shocked. Ah Fong giggled and said, Brother Lu Chen is very famous in the mainland. He's a singer and has already released 2 albums, right? All the works in his album were written by himself. He's a very good singer. Her understanding of Lu Chen all came from the internet. She specially searched for it after watching Autumn in My Heart. Yi Xian finally realized that he'd underestimated Lu Chen. Chapter 442. La Dolce Vita 97 had been operating in Lan Kwai Fong for more than 20 years, and it was only in recent years that the LDV King of Singing Awards was held. But because it was held every week, it had accumulated quite a lot of times. And tonight's LDV Singing King competition was undoubtedly quite special. First, the singer Yi Xian appeared on stage. His song, Breaking Dawn, won the applause of the audience. However, just when everyone thought that there was no longer any suspense in the outcome of the competition, Lu Chen, who came on stage behind Yi Xian, stunned the audience with his song, The Love of My Life. This made the guests in the bar feel a different kind of musical charm, and also made the final outcome confusing. As for the contestants who were ranked at the end, they were basically there to watch the show. When all the performances were over, it was time to vote. As expected, the number of flowers obtained by Lu Chen and Yi Xian rose alternately, showing a stalemate. In the end, Yi Xian received 57 flowers, while Lu Chen received 57. He was actually defeated by Yi Xian by only 1 flower. This result was actually very normal. After all, Yi Xian was a well-known local singer, and Lu Chen was a mainlander who came to Lan Kwai Fong for the first time. No matter how good his singing was, the majority of the guests in the bar were from Xiangjiang. In their opinion, Lu Chen only lost 1 flower, which was already a glorious defeat. However, Yi Xian didn't approve of this result. It wasn't that the gap was too small, but that he thought that tonight's champion should be Lu Chen's. Because Lu Chen had taken out an original work, he was a cover of Lu Tian Wang. This was the biggest difference. Yi Xian specially went to find the owner of La Dolce Vita 97 bar. After some negotiation, the owner announced that he would give his flower to Lu Chen. In this way, the two of them tied and won the championship at the same time. Both of them won the reward of a free bill and a free red wine. Actually, whether it was Lu Chen or Yi Xian, they didn't lack this little bit of money. It was just that they had friends at night, so they were having a good time. Everyone being happy was truly happy. As the saying goes, if you don't fight, you won't get to know each other. After this small competition, Lu Chen got to know Yi Xian, a local singer. Yi Xian also got to know Lu Chen, a singer from the mainland. Although he wasn't able to obtain the authorization for the love of my life, as he wished, Yi Xian still enthusiastically invited Lu Chen to participate in a Hong Kong singers' music gathering. Lu Chen didn't play very late at La Dolce Vita 97. Although Xiangjiang's nightlife had just begun, he was already used to sleeping early and waking up early. Thus, after saying goodbye to Yi Xian and Li Jin's friends, he returned to his residence. After returning to his apartment and taking a shower, Lu Chen thought for a moment and sent a message to Chen Feier. He didn't expect Chen Feier to call back so quickly. Lu Chen was surprised. "It's so late and you're still awake. What are you doing?" Chen Feier said coquettishly, "I can't sleep. I just lay down on the bed and wanted to sleep when I received your message." "What's wrong?" Lu Chen smiled and said, "Nothing, I just miss you." Chen Feier giggled and said, "Xu Jing called me in the evening and said that you were very popular at her charity dinner. A song was sold at a sky-high price of millions." Madame Jean sent 2 goddaughters eagerly. "Aren't they beautiful?" Lu Chen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "What? It's just a deal. She paid for it, and I just contributed a little." Chen Feier would actually be jealous, but she was very cute when she was a little jealous. "Humph, I don't think you dare to have any playful thoughts," Chen Feier said coquettishly. "I have a lot of informants in Xiangjiang. They can keep an eye on you all the time." Lu Chen smiled and said, "How can there be such a powerful informant? It's better for you to come and keep an eye on me." Chen Feier sighed and said, "If I knew this, I wouldn't have accepted this movie. I can't leave for at least a year. I have to travel all over the country. I'm so tired." She was currently filming a big drama produced by CCTV. It was a big investment and there were many stars. The shooting period would take at least a year, so even if she wanted to come to Xiangjiang, she might not have the time. Although it was a joke, Chen Feier was really a little worried about Lu Chen's career in Xiangjiang. Although Lu Chen's character was trustworthy, they were not married after all. It was hard to guarantee that no one would covet this piece of Tang Sang's meat. Especially in Xiangjiang, it was a special zone that allowed people to marry more than one wife. Lu Chen was very young, super handsome, and outstanding talent. In the eyes of any woman, he was definitely a diamond-level bachelor and would be popular everywhere. Of course, Chen Feier was confident in himself, but he couldn't stand the fact that the two of them were in different places. And Xiangjiang was also a famous nest of beauties. When it came to emotional issues, the Heavenly Queen was also selfish, so she couldn't help but give him a warning. She also complained. Lu Chen comforted Chen Feier with a few gentle words, coaxing Chen Feier's heart to feel sweet. In the end, Chen Feier said, "It's not easy for Sister Xu Jing now. If you can help her more." No matter how glorious she was in the past, the current Xu Jing was no longer her original identity. Her return to the entertainment industry was more like a gamble. If she lost, she might lose everything. She couldn't afford to fail again. They were both women and good friends, so Chen Feier was willing to let Lu Chen help. Lu Chen said, "I know." Speaking of this, his heart moved, and he chatted with Chen Feier about going to Lan Gui Fong to play at night. Of course, it also included getting to know Yi Xian. Chen Feier didn't know Yi Xian, nor did she care. She was very envious of Lu Chen's ease. "Next time I come to Xiangjiang, we'll go to La Dolce Vita 97 together. I know about this bar, but I've never been there before. It sounds very interesting." When the time comes, you can sing for me again, there's no need to go through so much trouble. I'll sing it for you now. There was no need to find a guitar to accompany him. Lu Chen directly sang into the microphone, if you wait foolishly, one day, you will finally be able to wait for the love of your life. Who would mind our relationship? Every time we encounter an accident, we don't know the future. When he sang, the love of a lifetime, again, he sang it for only one person. A person who really wanted to sing it to her, gentle and affectionate. If it's real, if it's fake, if you can play yourself, you will give the gentleness in your heart to your only confidant. Chen Feier listened quietly without saying a word. After Lu Chen finished singing, he asked softly, "Are you listening?" What answered him was the sound of even and long breathing. The person on the other side of the phone had already fallen asleep. The corner of Lu Chen's mouth curled up into a smile, his eyes filled with tenderness. He didn't end the call immediately. Instead, he listened to Chen Feier's breathing, as if she was by his side. Outside the window, the moonlight was like water, and the night was gentle. Chapter 443. Some people were singing, some people were dancing, some people were playing, and some people were laughing. The night in Xiangjiang was never peaceful. Therefore, when many people had already fallen asleep, there were still many people who were still enjoying life or busy with their daily tasks. On the 27th floor of Block B, Longqing Building, 269 Guangming Road, Queens Road West, the editorial office of Polo Daily was brightly lit, and a group of newspaper editors were working nervously in front of the computer. Polo Daily was one of the free newspapers with the largest circulation in Xiangjiang, with a daily circulation of more than 700,000, so it had a great influence in Xiangjiang. This newspaper aimed at the general public had always been known for its fast, accurate, and ruthless reporting of social news. Fast refers to the speed at which they publish news. Although it can't be compared to the internet, even if the news just happened tonight, when the citizens wake up tomorrow morning, they can see the relevant reports and comments at the newsstand or in their own mailbox. Accurate referred to their accurate positioning of news, aiming at the social hotspots and entertainment gossip of Xiangjiang, and grasping the tastes and hobbies of the general public, so the circulation was high. As for ruthless, it had a rich meaning. The paparazzi of Polo Daily were ruthless in grabbing news, and their editors were also ruthless in writing. Specifically speaking, it was enough to write a thick storybook. With these three words and the strategy of free distribution, Polo Daily, which had been established for less than 10 years, fought its way out of many competitors in Xiangjiang and became the leader of the newspaper industry. In the editor-in-chief's office, Editor-in-Chief Li Wan sat at the desk and reviewed the sample newspaper that had just been printed. This was his daily work, or he would not be able to sleep well. The success of Polo Daily was inseparable from the hard work of the former deputy editor-in-chief of famous newspaper. Although he was over 40 years old, he was still as energetic as many young people. Editor-in-Chief Li. A skinny young man with a camera on his back rushed in and shouted, "I got a piece of news about Xu Jing." His voice was so loud that everyone in the editorial office could hear him clearly. The editorial office of Polo Daily was an open office. Although Editor-in-Chief Li Wan had an independent office, he could clearly see the inside and outside of the office through the large floor-to-ceiling glass windows. Unless there was something very important or very private, the door to his office was always open. Certain staff members did not need to announce or even knock on the door to directly barge in and report to him. This seemingly unruly rule allowed Li Wan to firmly control the Polo Daily's affairs. His prestige among the newspaper reporters and editors was unmatched even by the boss. The young man who had just barged in was one of the entertainment reporters hired by Polo Daily, commonly known as paparazzi. Li Wan put down the printed sample in her hand and looked at him with a faint smile. "Xiao Ho, you won't make a mistake again this time, right?" Xiao Ho's face turned red. He quickly raised the camera in his hand and said, "It's true this time." Tonight, Xu Jing held a charity dinner at the Shangri-La Hotel. After it ended, she went to Lanting Coffee with a handsome guy, and then, "Quick, let me see." Li Wan's interest was immediately piqued. She took Xiao Ho's camera and skillfully connected it to the computer with a data cable. She retrieved the photos from the memory card and watched them. Xu Jing used to be a pop diva in the music industry. After marrying into a wealthy family, she retired from the entertainment industry. A few years ago, her divorce caused an uproar, and she was still a very popular figure in the industry. Xu Jing was both a star and a socialite, which was quite newsworthy. She had not been dating anyone for a few years after her divorce. If the photos Xiao Ho took could prove her new relationship, it was completely worthy of being in the headlines. "This one, look at this one, and this one." Xiao Ho stood next to her, pointing and explaining nervously, "There was a traffic jam in Central at night. I could have come earlier, but I was stuck on the road." As a newcomer, Xiao Ho's seniority in Polo Daily was very shallow. Due to his lack of experience, he made a fool of himself when he snatched the news last time, which made him very embarrassed in front of his colleagues. This time, he squatted and followed Xu Jing, and with patience and luck, he finally took some valuable photos. However, Xiao Ho was also very worried that if other colleagues were also present, his exclusive rights would be gone. Therefore, it was most important to be on the front page as soon as possible. Li Wan waved his hand. He had seen the important photos, and to be honest, he was a little disappointed, because Xu Jing was with a handsome man, but both of them were accompanied by assistants or friends, so there was no intimate action taken. It was obviously not convincing to use these photos to prove that she had a new lover, but Xiao Ho chose two good angles, which gave people a feeling of intimacy when singled out. However, Li Wan searched in his mind, but he could not recognize the tall and handsome young man as an entertainer in the entertainment circle, or a descendant of a famous family. Of course, Hong Kong was so big and there were countless outstanding young people, so it was normal for Xu Jing to find a lover who was unknown to people outside the circle, but the identity of the other party would definitely not be very simple. He thought for a moment and immediately made a decision. "I'll give you a position on the B page. Use these photos and ask Xiao Zhang to immediately rearrange the page and add a title. After proofreading, send it to the printer immediately." Free newspapers like Polo Daily, which mainly focused on social news and entertainment news, usually had big headlines, big pictures, and few words. Big headlines were often bigger than the font size of the masthead, with exaggerated and sensational colors, interspersed with pictures, supplemented with a small number of explanatory words, which was completely different from the serious newspapers such as current affairs and professional ones. One advantage of this style of typesetting was that it was very easy to change the page. It was common to temporarily change the content of the page before printing, so the editors had long been used to it. The B page was the second page, second only to the front page. Xiao Ho was already overjoyed. An editor complained, "Xiao Ho, you've really made it this time. We have to work overtime because of you. You have to treat us." Little Ho chuckled foolishly. Sitting in the office, Li Wan couldn't help laughing. He held the mouse and found the previous photos. For some reason, the chief editor felt that the young man who had coffee with Xu Jing in the evening was a little familiar. Out of professional sensitivity, he had to think carefully, maybe it would be a big news. At the same time, on the pop music section of Hong Kong's largest BBS forum, someone had just posted a video. The title was, "Has anyone heard this song?" Chapter 444. Xinjiang was the gateway to South China and the mainland's bridgehead to South Asia and the Western world. Since the beginning of the last century, Xinjiang's economic development had always been ahead of the domestic and had long reached the standards of developed countries. However, since the beginning of the new century, especially after the explosion of the internet industry, Xinjiang gradually fell behind, especially in the IT industry. There were only a few local high-tech companies in Xinjiang, and the talents trained by the University of Technology often chose to go to domestic or foreign countries to develop. The unique cultural atmosphere, the lag of the industrial system, and the rapid and intense pace of life and work led to the average time spent on the internet for young people in Xinjiang. The internet space that young people in Xinjiang usually liked to browse and communicate was mainly concentrated in a few big BSS, or large foreign social network service sites, and finally Hong Kong blogs in Xinjiang. Other than professionals, very few people liked to browse domestic websites. Even if the domestic websites were far more developed than Xinjiang, young people in Xinjiang rarely interacted with domestic netizens. Pride and isolation were the portrayal of them. Therefore, the internet circle of Xinjiang was a relatively closed virtual world. The Hong Kong Forum was undoubtedly one of the biggest fortresses in this world. Most people had their own accounts on this BBS website. The Hong Kong Forum account was also connected to the Hong Kong blog. The combination of the two was basically the online home of the people in Xinjiang. If you wanted to know about the big and small things in Xinjiang, you could get first-hand information on the Hong Kong Forum and blog. The Hong Kong Forum had a total of 12 main sections, and the pop music section was one of them. Has anyone heard this song? The post was uploaded at 11 o'clock in the evening. There were many netizens in the section. Most of them were fans of pop music, and there were even some professional singers. Xinjiang's pop music started in the 1970s. Like Xinjiang's movies, it had a glorious period. A large number of Xinjiang singers, represented by Cantonese songs, had a high reputation in the mainland. Although Xinjiang's pop music was showing a trend of decline and had fallen into an embarrassing situation in recent years, the number of fans was still quite large. Therefore, the popularity of the pop music section had always been very high. Similar posts were very common, and many enthusiastic netizens clicked on the post. The poster's name was Vivian, and she was registered as a girl. She wrote in her post, "Tonight, I went to Longue Fong with my friends to play. At La Dolce Vita 97, I happened to run into the LDV Singing King Award held by the bar. Then, I unexpectedly saw Yi Xian singing on stage, a song by Lu Tianwang, Breaking Dawn. Seeing this, everyone was a bit confused. Since Yi Xian was singing Lu Tianwang's Breaking Dawn, then who hadn't heard of this song? He didn't expect Vivian to not waste any ink on Yi Xian. She focused on the participant that appeared after Yi Xian. She used exaggerated and enthusiastic strokes to describe how handsome this participant was, how good his singing was, and how touching it was. Finally, she desperately wanted to know where she could download the original version of this contestant's song. At the end of the post, there was a video taken by a mobile phone. This strange turn of the road, this exaggerated tone, made many of the single members of the forum feel very unhappy. Many people secretly suspected that it was deliberately hyping up and stepping on Yi Xian to rise to the top. It was not surprising that there was such a guess. Right now, the pop music world of Xinjiang was in chaos. In order to gain a higher position, new artists and singers used all kinds of unscrupulous means to hype up. Naturally, the pop music section could not escape the influence of this trend. But regardless of whether it was a hype or not, everyone clicked on the video. They decided to take a look first. If it was really a hype, then regardless of whether the original poster was a girl or not, they would definitely scold her and ask the moderator to delete the post. Needless to say, this 7-minute video was a recording of Lu Chen singing "The Love of My Life" at La Dolce Vita 97, from the moment he went on stage to the moment Yi Xian appeared. After watching the video, the forum members who boasted of themselves as veterans fell into a short period of silence. A large number of replies appeared after a few minutes. "I've never heard this song before, but to be fair, it's a very good work. I agree with the seventh floor. It's a good song, but I've never heard it before. I can't find it on the internet. Since it could be an original work, I can only say that this singer is very good. Well, his guitar playing is very sharp, and his singing level is very high. He should be a professional. Really? Hey, he's so handsome and powerful. He should have been famous long ago. Why haven't I seen him before? Could it be a new debut? Didn't you all pay attention? He said he came from the mainland, and it was his first time playing in Lan Gui Fang. Mainland? Damn it. Let's not talk about it for now. I'll take down the score of this song first. Good song. Although there were a lot of doubts and puzzlement, most people in the pop music section thought that this, The Love of My Life, was a very outstanding Cantonese work. They expressed shock and surprise that Lu Chen, who sang this song, was from the mainland. It was common for Hong Kong singers to go to the mainland to sing Mandarin songs, but it was really rare for mainland singers to come to Hong Kong to sing Cantonese songs. There were also a few famous ones, but Lu Chen was definitely not one of them. In fact, none of these forum veterans who participated in the discussion recognized Lu Chen. Until an ID called 3 Bowls of Wine appeared. Ha, you don't believe me when I say you're ignorant. Do you know who this is? It's ridiculous to say that Yi Xian is hyped up. Compared with this guy, Yi Xian is only good enough to carry shoes. You guys are all frogs at the bottom of a well. As soon as 3 Bowls of Wine read the post, the comments section immediately exploded. Old wine, if you have something to say, just say it. What kind of hero are you to hide it? Forgive me for being ignorant. Throw your mother away. F***ck your lungs, loser. God of Wine, please explain. 3 Bowls of Wine was famous in the pop music and film and TV talk sections of Hong Kong's BBS. He was known for his high professionalism, sharp comments, and poisonous tongue. Fans called him God of Wine, and haters scolded him as Broken Bowl. He could be considered a topical figure. His fighting ability was absolutely superb, and his ability to attract hatred was first class. With a few words, he provoked a battle in the forum section and dragged a group of people into the water. As a result, who has heard this song? This post became popular, and it quickly reached the front page of the BBS, and then was seen by the administrator and pinned to the top. Along with the song, The Love of My Life, more and more netizens in Hong Kong knew. Chapter 445. Viviani's, who has heard this song? The post was posted on the pop music section of the Hong Kong forum at 11:10 a.m. Within half an hour, the post had become one of the hottest posts on the homepage of the Hong Kong forum. It had over 20,000 views and over 1,000 replies. Although this number was nothing compared to the hottest posts in some of the popular forums in China, it was already the hottest post in the Hong Kong forum. 3 Bowls of Liquor's venomous words played an important role. Many members of the forum were enraged by his words. They used all kinds of obscenities to attack him. The moderator had to delete the comments and warn him. As a result, the popularity of the post continued to increase after midnight. More and more people participated in the discussion. As the original poster, Viviani obviously did not expect that her post would cause a war. After posting for more than an hour, she timidly asked 3 Bowls of Liquor who this handsome guy was. Only then did everyone realize that they had been arguing for a long time and still did not know who the main character was. 3 Bowls of Liquor was obviously friendlier to the girl. He replied, "This handsome guy who plays the guitar and sings is called Lu Chen. He is the leader of the new generation of the Chinese pop music industry. It has only been a year since his debut and he has already released 2 albums. He also filmed 2 TV series. Not only did he set a record for the audience in China, he also won great success in Korea. That's why I said you are all ignorant. You only know about Hong Kong forums and blogs. You don't know how exciting the outside world is. Now the mainland's entertainment industry has already surpassed Xinjiang. There are many talented people in the pop music and film industry. The market scale and development potential are many times greater than Xinjiang. 3 bowls of liquor. S reply to Viviani was like a big stone thrown into a deep pool. It immediately caused countless waves and ripples. In just a few minutes, a large number of replies appeared. Some were surprised, some were praising, but most were criticizing. Some even called 3 bowls of liquor a Hong Kong traitor. 3 bowls of liquor. S reply really hit the sore spot of many people. It was also the sore spot of many people in Xinjiang. That was, the current mainland was surpassing Xinjiang in all aspects, but most people in Xinjiang were still immersed in the glory of the past, unwilling to recognize the development and progress of the country, and always had a sense of superiority in the past. This kind of social atmosphere was reflected in the public opinion media. That was, the local TV stations, newspapers and magazines' reports on China were basically focused on politics, and social news and entertainment news were very rare. Most of the news was about natural disasters and man-made disasters, and the people of Xinjiang didn't like to read other news. Therefore, when Lu Qin came to Xinjiang for the first time after just over a year, most people did not know him, nor did they know his identity. 3 bowls of wine was obviously not one of them. In the face of the tidal wave of attacks, he remained unmoved, as steady as Mount Tai, and sent another reply. Some people are always pretending to be asleep. Let me tell you about the achievements of this Lu Qin in China. His first album, You Who Sat Next to Me, has sold more than 2 million, and his second album, The Ordinary Road, has sold nearly 3 million, and is very likely to reach the crown achievement of 5 million. Not only that, Lu Chen's album Woman Flower, for his girlfriend Chen Fei has sold more than 5 million, and the TV series, Full House of Romance, which he created and starred in, has a rating of 42% in South Korea. Tell me, which singer in Xinjiang can have such achievements, and which TV series can have such a rating when exported to South Korea? If you don't believe me, then go search it on the domestic search engine. Don't say that you can't understand simplified Chinese. The common languages in Xinjiang included Mandarin, Cantonese, and English. There were more people who could speak Mandarin than before, but Xinjiang's writing had always followed the traditional Chinese characters, and did not follow the mainland's change to simplified Chinese. The debate between simplified and traditional Chinese characters had been going on for a long time, and Xinjiang people were generally stubborn about the authentic, traditional Chinese characters. This was also one of the important reasons why many Xinjiang netizens refused to go to domestic websites. Even if many domestic websites and forums provided the function of converting between simplified and traditional Chinese characters. As soon as the heavy punch of Over 3 Bowls of Wine came out, many people suddenly became silent. The 2 albums added up to 5 million sales, and the album produced by others also sold more than 5 million. In Xinjiang 20 years ago, the big stars of the Xinjiang music industry, who controlled the 2 major markets in Hong Kong and the mainland, could definitely win. But now, it was better to save it. Everyone knew that Xinjiang's pop music industry was very poor now. The strength of the new generation was insufficient, and the old singers were exhausted. The most important thing was that they had lost the big market in the mainland. It would be a great success if a new album could sell for hundreds of thousands. Moreover, singers and artists no longer relied on selling records to make money. They all took the so-called pan-entertainment route, and those excellent creators in the past had either withered or retired, and the original creators were getting fewer and fewer. Cantonese pop songs had not produced a real classic for a long time. Although there were still outstanding works, compared with the glory of the past, it really made people sigh. This song, The Love of My Life, played by Lu Chen and sung by himself, undoubtedly made people's eyes light up. To be fair, in recent years, there had not been a better work than it in Xinjiang's pop music industry. But why was its singer and composer an artist from the mainland? Many forum members who had been arguing until they were dizzy finally woke up and began to rationally discuss the work itself, instead of the difference between Xinjiang and the mainland. The night was long, and some people were not in the mood to sleep. And Lu Chen slept very soundly in his new home in Xinjiang, until he got up at 6 in the morning. After washing up, he habitually changed into sports shoes and clothes, then went out of the apartment and ran along the shore of the shallow bay beach. Finally, he found a secluded place to practice martial arts. After practicing until he came back drenched in sweat, not far from the apartment, Lu Chen bought a hot breakfast from the convenience store and prepared to take it home. When he paid, he suddenly saw the newspaper rack next to the cashier. On those dazzling and gaudy newspapers, there was a very familiar photo. These newspapers were all unfolded and hung in thick stacks. The newspaper that Lu Chen saw was called Polo Daily. The photo was published on the second page with a very eye-catching title. Xu Jing met a mysterious handsome man at night, suspected to have a new lover. Damn! Lu Chen couldn't help but curse. This photo was the scene of him sending Xu Jing to the car after drinking coffee with her last night. It was actually taken by paparazzi. Xinjiang's paparazzi really deserved their reputation. Chapter 446. The entertainment reporters in Xinjiang had the same origin as the notorious paparazzi in the UK, and they had the essence of the latter. Because the media in Xinjiang was very developed, even in the age of the internet, the traditional TV, radio, newspapers, and magazines were still very powerful, and they competed for limited resources in a limited space. Therefore, most of the paparazzi in Xinjiang had developed a special ability to follow, secretly take photos, and dig up the privacy of celebrities. Especially the celebrities in Xinjiang, they all changed their faces when talking about paparazzi. Guarding against paparazzi was a basic skill, and those who didn't master this skill would be embarrassed sooner or later, unless they were clean and innocent. Therefore, there were many celebrities who quit the entertainment circle, which gave rise to sensational entertainment gossip such as XXX door. Before coming to Xinjiang, several of his friends in the circle, including Chen Fei, had warned Lu Chen that the paparazzi in Xinjiang were very powerful, and he must be very careful not to let them have anything on him. Lu Chen kept that in mind, but after arriving in Xinjiang, he found that the atmosphere here was special, and there were very few people who knew him, so he more or less slacked off. He didn't expect that he would be secretly photographed. In fact, he knew that it was useless for him to be careful, because Xu Jing was careful enough, and she also didn't expect it. Lu Chen couldn't help shaking his head, and reached out to take the Polo Daily. How much? The clerk replied, 50 cents. Polo Daily was a free daily, but it was not free to sell it in convenience stores or newsstands, so the 50 cents was the booth fee that the latter naturally earned. But this price was very cheap, because as a daily newspaper, Polo Daily had more than 20 pages, and it had enough materials, so it had a lot of weight in his hands. Lu Chen had some understanding of the media in Xinjiang, and he knew that Polo Daily was a rising black horse in Xinjiang in recent years, and its daily circulation was much higher than that of several old newspapers in the same industry, which was very powerful. He didn't expect that he would be on the second page of Polo Daily just a few days after coming to Xinjiang. But what made Lu Chen dumbfounded was that in this sensationalist news article, he was just a mysterious man. What was even more outrageous was that the article even hinted that he might be Xu Jing's gigolo. If the owner of the Polo Daily was standing in front of Lu Qin at this moment, Lu Qin would not hesitate to throw the nonsense newspaper in his hand at his face. With breakfast and newspapers, Lu Qin returned home. After washing off his sweat, he had just changed into clean clothes when the phone on the coffee table rang. After the call was connected, Xu Jing's voice came through the phone. "Lu Qin, I'm really sorry." Lu Qin understood as soon as he heard it. "Do you want to talk about today's Polo Daily report?" "Ah." Xu Jing was surprised. "You've seen it?" Lu Qin laughed. "Yes, I've seen the power of the Xiangjiang paparazzi." Xu Jing said apologetically, "I'm sorry, it's my negligence that got you into trouble. I'll post a statement on my blog to explain. I'm sorry for the trouble." The blog she was talking about was not the Domestic Waves blog, but a Hong Kong blog. Lu Qin said, "It's not your fault. You don't have to apologize. It's not a big deal. Countless precedents had proved that as a celebrity, it was not worth it to be angry with the media. Unless it was blatant malicious slander or fabrication, it was enough to clarify and laugh it off. Since he had come to Xiangjiang to develop his career, he must be familiar with and adapt to the rules here. Therefore, Lu Qin didn't take it to heart, and of course, he wouldn't blame Xu Jing. After chatting for a while, Lu Qin ended the call with Xu Jing. He thought for a while and called Qin Fei. The communication between the media in China and Xiangjiang was very poor, and gossip usually rarely appeared there. But now it was the age of the internet, and the transmission of information was very fast. Therefore, for the sake of safety, he had to tell Qin Fei about it. After all, it was a scandal. After listening to Lu Qin's words, Qin Fei laughed and shouted, "Send this newspaper to me right now. I want to see this so-called mysterious man." Lu Qin was speechless. He had nothing to say to her. After breakfast, he went out to the studio. Today, he was going to visit a local film company with Wan Xiaoquan and Qin Wenxiang to discuss the cooperation of the new film. At the same time, Xu Jing posted a statement on her blog. The main content of the statement was to refute the report of Polo Daily. She explained the identity and background of Lu Qin in detail, and specifically said that it was the first time they met last night, and that they talked about her new album in the cafe. At the end of the blog post, Xu Jing also attached a photo of her and Lu Qin at the charity dinner at that time. Xu Jing was the queen of the music industry in Xiangjiang, so she naturally knew how to deal with this kind of gossip. She didn't cover up Lu Qin's identity, and frankly announced it to everyone, so that she could show her calmness. Don't make wild guesses. In the article, Xu Jing also ridiculed the ignorance of the paparazzi and editors of the Polo Daily. They didn't even know Lu Qin, who has recently become a hot topic in China and Korea. They even called him a mysterious man, which was ridiculous. Xu Jing had more than 500,000 fans on her blog in Hong Kong, which was much less than those big stars. But as soon as the post was published, it immediately received a lot of reposts and comments. The circle of Xiangjiang was actually very small, and when there was any news, it was often known by everyone. Anyway, Xu Jing was a celebrity, so it didn't take long for Li Wan, the editor-in-chief of Polo Daily, to know about it. After reading Xu Jing's post, he pondered for a moment, and then called Xiao Ho back. When Xiao Ho returned to the editorial department, Li Wan showed him the post. Xiao Ho was shocked. Editor-in-chief Li Wan shook her head and stopped him from self-reflection. She said, "It's not your fault. Even I didn't recognize this Lu Qin. If we're talking about negligence, it's my fault first." Xiao Ho felt like he had been pardoned, and he was very touched. Li Wan continued, "The first mistake can be forgiven, but not the second time. From today on, keep an eye on him. There must be a lot of information on him. The editor-in-chief of Polo Daily pointed at Lu Chen on the screen, who was smiling very handsomely in the photo. There was a sharp light in Li Wan's eyes, as if she was a hunter who had found a powerful prey. It was the first time that Xiao Ho saw such a look in Li Wan's eyes, and he couldn't help but shiver. He seemed to smell the smoke of gunpowder. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.